It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. Great panel. Erin Griffith joins us from Fortune, Dan Patterson from Tech Republic, and Alex Wilhelm from TechCrunch. We're going to have a lot of fun talking about the fall of Yahoo, the end of RDO, and the #1 word of the year. It's an emoji. All next on Twit.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for This Week in Tech is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com. This is Twit This Week in Tech, episode 537, recorded Sunday, November 22nd, 2015. It's a post-text world. This Week in Tech is brought to you by Harry's, for guys who want a great shave experience for a fraction of what you're paying now. Go to harrys.com. Get $5 off your first purchase by entering the code TWIT5 when you check out. And by lynda.com, the online learning platform with over 3,000 on-demand video courses to help you strengthen your business, technology, and creative skills. For a free 10-day trial, visit lynda.com/twit2. That's lynda.com/TWIT and the number 2. And by audible.com. Sign up for the Platinum Plan and get 2 free books. Go to audible.com/twit2. And don't forget to follow Audible on Twitter, user ID audible_com. And by Wealthfront. Wealthfront is a low-cost automated investment service that is the most sophisticated way for you to invest your money. Whether you've got millions or you're just starting out, visit wealthfront.com/twit to sign up and get your free personalized investment portfolio. That's wealthfront.com/twit. It's time for Twit This Week in Tech, the show where we cover the week's tech news. Got a great panel for us. Going to be fun this week. Going to be a little wild. What is it they said? What is it Betty Davis said? Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Starting on my left with Erin Griffith from Fortune. I'm sorry, Erin Griffin from, all right, I got...
Griffith.
Griffith.
You got it right, yeah.
Griffith from Fortune.com. It would have been better. Erin Griffin would have kind of,
tough one.
Your parents maybe should have named you Aerith.
Oh, wow. Okay.
No, never mind. Never mind. Also with us, Dan Patterson. Hey, congratulations, Dan. On when you first started working with us, you were at CBS Radio. Now you're at
ABC.
We're at ABC. Now you're at CBS.
Now CBS. Now
CBS Interactive via the great folks at Tech Republic, Jason Heiner and crew. Nice to have you. But you're working out of the CNET offices in New York.
Yeah. It's great to be with the CBS Interactive family, and Jason's a fantastic boss. I know Jason. He's no stranger to your audience.
Love Jason. Yeah, I was really thrilled when he told me that he'd hired you. I thought that was
Me
fantastic.
too.
Yeah, got you away from that other guy.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that other guy. Actually, he's in the news this week. Also here, speaking of other guys, Alex Wilhelm, TechCrunch.com. He's on the Ryan Koch train today.
Yeah, it's actually a bullet rye from your own kitchen. So thank you for the supply.
I love the bullet.
Yes, it's
I'm
fantastic. Quite tasty, if you will.
Boy, there's a lot to talk about. Of course, before the show, I said there was nothing to talk about. But now that I'm looking, it looks like there are a few things we can
One or
talk
two,
about.
maybe.
The battle is joined. ISIS versus Anonymous. That sounds like the old Reddit joke. Which would you rather fight, 1,000
duck-sized horses or one horse-sized
duck?
Whatever it is, yeah.
Which would you rather fight? This week, President Obama called ISIS a bunch of killers with great social media. You almost could say the same thing about Anonymous. It's the battle of the social media guys. Here's the Anonymous video announcing that some guy in a V for Vendetta mask announcing.
I can't take it seriously when they wear that stupid headgear. Like, why can't they just talk to me? I get bored.
The whole thing looks like a movie, doesn't it? It looks like it's straight out of Hollywood.
Maybe they think it looks good when in reality it doesn't.
Is Anonymous, is this, first of all, Anonymous can't declare anything. Anonymous is nothing. It's nobody. It's a loosely knit group. You can't even say who's in it.
It's very similar to the Twit production crew.
It's almost like Jason Howell declared war against ISIS.
Well, except
that is not true. That is not true. Let it be known for the record, I did not do that.
But I don't, do you think that in ISIS headquarters or Daesh headquarters are going, who? I mean, literally, who?
Maybe, but they are. I mean, say what you will about Anonymous, and they do look kind of silly there, but they have had a pretty practical effect here. And,
well, you covered the Occupy Wall Street movement, right?
Yeah, I've been at Occupy and at the UN covering Daesh, as they say up there, or ISIL, in large part because the word ISIS, of course, there's propaganda, there's power in the word.
It's a state, right? ISIS is
right,
Islamic
and
state.
Islam. I mean, there are many controversial parts of their name itself. So using Daesh, it's those who trample the book. That's an effective way to communicate about what this organization is doing. And it's kind of, I see what Anonymous is doing is kind of this weird new symmetrical attack. When ISIS attacks a nation state, it's asymmetric, right? Because they're small and they're using all these weird, small little ways to prick large nations. But Anonymous is kind of doing the same thing right back to them. So I certainly don't advocate for what Anonymous does necessarily, but it's very interesting to see similar tactics deployed against Daesh.
What does Anonymous say it's going to do?
They've been taking down Twitter accounts, and taking down. They've also been, a lot of members of Daesh. The websites are built using DDoS protection software like Cloudflare, which was in the news this week, and Telegram, of course. So they've been taking down those accounts, or at least listing these accounts.
And then, by the way, Telegram has responded by pulling down 22. ISIS-related channels. That doesn't mean ISIS can't continue to use Telegram.
They still can, right?
Of course.
Yeah. I think what Anonymous is doing is just applying pressure in the opposite direction and saying, look, if you're Cloudflare, the public has a right to know if you are keeping some of these questionable sites up. Same thing with Telegram. So at the very least, they can expose and provide a little sunlight to where these creepy bastards are crawling.
Whoa, now.
I don't actually, yeah, okay. Yeah, I thought I was banned from swearing. Let's all get, bastards is okay.
Oh,
let's all, especially when you're talking about Daesh.
Okay.
Let's all get on, anybody who wants to get on the bandwagon fighting terrorism, that's fine. Some might say in some ways Anonymous is a terrorist organization. So, it's an interesting, it feels, I'll be honest with you, and I don't know, but I have no inside knowledge of this. It feels like almost jumping on the bandwagon when ISIS says, Anonymous says, we're going to take him on. It's like, this is good PR almost, right?
True, but I'll take it.
Yeah,
if you're going to do anything to combat them, to bring them down, to hurt them, to defame the organization and so forth, limit their influence, I'm in favor of that. So, maybe it's a PR win for Anonymous, quote, quote, whatever it is, but, still, I'll give it 10 points. Why not?
One of the big tech stories, of course, about the terror attacks last weekend in Paris is, of course, the immediate push by governments, U.S., British, French, to shut down encryption, saying, well, how are we going to stop these guys if we can't hear what they're saying? Of course, as Dan Frumkin has reported in The Intercept and others, it looks like the terror suspects were actually not using encryption. In fact, one of the reasons they were able to find that Paris apartment hideout was they found a phone that was thrown away that had, the GPS nothing was encrypted.
Yes.
On the other hand, at the same time this week, we heard that there is a help desk, an ISIS help desk, and they have an operational security manual, which involves things that I think we would all agree are good operational security protocols, like using Tails, the Linux secure Linux portable distro, using Threema, perhaps using. This is one of the reasons I haven't covered this story very much on Twit all week, is I feel like there's disinformation also coming from governments about what they were using, and we don't really know. There's the implication they might have used WhatsApp, Telegram, or Threema. But then that turns out that came from the French government, and there's not a whole lot of evidence they were using that.
Right, and there was that New York Times story that got taken down on the same topic. And I think, if I recall properly, the government spin people were out in force right after the incident, saying this is because of encryption, this is because of Snowden. That's the real.
Well, that one really was infuriating. Yeah, blaming Snowden for this. Well, Dan, you covered this. So, what do we know? What don't we know? How much of this is just a government's attempt to blame something other than themselves?
I mean, I know about the same amount as you guys know. And that's, anytime you hear certain types of coded language being used by government, particularly when it's used in the context of encryption and cybersecurity, you can look for things like "we suspected" or hearing, the PlayStation rumor repeated over and over and over. Anything that is not substantiated, assume that the government is just using this as propaganda, not necessarily evil or malicious propaganda, because they have their objective. Their objective, as they see it, a big challenge for all of us is to empathize and try to see things through, other people's eyes. And the way the government and many governments and law enforcement are looking at this is we just want to stop we fear another attack may happen. We want to stop it.
Thank you. Now, I think that's really important to say that, Dan. And I don't want to give the impression in any way that we are against the folks who are doing their best to protect us.
Amen.
And I believe very much that they are absolutely sincere in those efforts. On the other hand, as technologists, we understand that you can't stop encryption. It's too late. Right. It's math. It's the horses left the barn.
And it's our job to communicate to them why this is important. If you are upholding our government, then you also need to defend the very principles like privacy on which our governments rest. And it's important for us to communicate.
How do we do that? I mean, I read about encryption here and there. I read about security and the NSA and all of this. And I have a really hard time taking these really kind of abstract concepts and making them applicable and understandable to the average person. So, as a journalist, what's your approach or method that you do to kind of make this more, understandable to the common person? Because we're nerds, dude, but they're not. Yeah. So.
Right. I think maybe it's just that, we are nerds, we're tech people, and just say, I'm not talking to you as me being a journalist on high telling you how to communicate. It's I don't know, people are people, they're dudes. They just go, hey, everybody, let's take a breath and talk about what we want. We want mutual
ponies.
Cool on all sides.
Ponies. Ponies and unicorns. That's all that I want.
Erin,
we all want unicorns.
We all want you. That's all. Erin, what's your take on this?
The only thing I would add to that about getting people to kind of care and pay closer attention to this kind of stuff is it's really interesting how much people care now versus how much they cared when Anthem got hacked or when Target got hacked. When all of their personal data was potentially exposed, people were outraged for a couple days or maybe weeks. And then, whatever, what are you going to do? Not put your credit card information in there? And they kind of moved on. But now it's almost even further to the extreme where people are like, take my data. It's fine. Just stop the terrorists. And I think that's our job as journalists to kind of educate people on exactly what we're giving up every time, we either shrug or just, sort of roll over and say, privacy is not that important when it comes to terrorism.
I guess that's the message. I have the chance to talk on the radio to normal people, and on Friday I was on the morning show in Los Angeles, the Bill Hannell morning show, and spoke specifically about this and said, the thing that's important to understand, of course we want to fight terrorism, and of course it must be very frustrating for law enforcement to know that there are conversations going on that they can't eavesdrop on. But you know what? The terrorists can meet in private as well. And we wouldn't encourage law enforcement to start spying on everybody, hoping to catch those private meetings. That the math for encryption is already widely known. And you could tell Google, Apple, and Microsoft, hey, make sure there's a backdoor in all your encryption stuff, okay? And they might even do it. But that wouldn't really accomplish anything, because there are plenty of other ways to encrypt. In fact, the only real problem with what would happen is that by putting a backdoor in, they'd hamper our ability to stay secure. They'd give a backdoor not only to government but to bad guys. And so this is kind of a wrong-headed way to approach this.
But the rhetoric is so bad. I mean, we have Senator Dianne Feinstein, our senator, out there talking about how tech companies are not doing their job to pull their weight to.
It really was a lot of blame on Apple and Google,
which is ridiculous because as you said, you can't beat math, you can't break math, and if you build in a front door or a back door, you're living in a compromised system.
Let me play devil's advocate. If you somehow, without trumpeting it, if you manage to get a backdoor in Windows and OS 10 and Gmail, let's say. And you don't tell anybody, no one knows, isn't it likely that bad guys will use those operating systems, and if they don't know that we might be able to catch them?
Dan, that's you.
I mean,
Boy,
honestly,
come on,
that's the only reason. That's the only way this works. If you read this OPSEC manual, and I don't know where this came from. This is again this problem of is that what's the provenance of this? Is this something that some French government officials offered up, or is this actually an OPSEC manual for ISIS? But it's smart enough to say use tails. Which, there's no way there's a government backdoor in Tails. They were using black phone. They were. This is the Wired story. Does Wired say where they got this manual from? I don't know if they do.
Not to my knowledge, no.
But they're saying use black phone. If that manual is true, it's well informed. It is. They're not saying, "Hey, you don't have to worry. You could trust Microsoft's BitLocker. There's no way the government has a backdoor in there." They're not that dumb, in other words.
I'm just surprised that people are surprised this is actually a thing. I mean, ISIS has revenue. They have an army. Why wouldn't they have an IT desk? Why wouldn't they have some knowledge for their operatives? I mean, people are like, "Oh my gosh, they had this IT thing." Well, yeah. What do you think they had? Nothing.
Right.
This is the 20.
Well, that's because when ISIS first, sort of came out. Our government dismissed it as like, oh, we don't have to worry about these guys. This is just a ragtag crew. And, that's kind of what people believed for a long time. So I think it is shocking when these kinds of things come out. Interesting
that they do in this OPSEC manual recommend Apple's messages as a secure way to send emails.
That one's for you, Tim Cook. It's all for you, man.
I'm not sure I would.
Apple has been really quiet ever since last week, haven't they? They haven't come out and said anything, responded to the criticisms, right? And they're basically taking the brunt of this.
Cook has been pretty outspoken about saying governments must not put a back door in encryption, but not this week specifically. Yeah. No, I don't think so. But he's certainly been outspoken.
We live in a complicated age, and it may just be that there are no simple solutions. This is an organization that's built its brand on digital literacy, and unfortunately, they know a lot of the same things we know, and it's just challenging.
This was inevitable, wasn't it? I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I know from having talked to law enforcement, to the Secret Service, and so forth. This is, by the way, a recent Tim Cook interview or a talk at a recent event.
I see.
There's a couple of days ago, the ITI. Yeah. And he did, in fact, say encryption is a security tool we rely on every day to stop criminals from draining our bank accounts, to shield our cars and airplanes from being taken over by malicious hacks, to otherwise preserve our security and safety. We deeply appreciate law enforcement's and the national security communities to work to protect us, but, and I think this is well said, weakening encryption or creating backdoors to encrypted devices and data for use by the good guys would actually create vulnerabilities to be exploited by the bad guys, which would almost certainly cause serious physical and financial harm across our society and economy. Weakening security with the aim of advancing security does not make sense. That's well said. I think that to answer your question, Alex, that's what we should be telling people.
I mean,
right?
it's beautifully put and also very important. I mean, if you weaken encryption to the point which it is hackable and unencryptable, then you don't have encryption at all. So you almost can't have it both ways here.
Wasn't it inevitable, though? I started saying, when I've spoken in the past to, say, the Secret Service, they kind of always counted on the stupidity of bad guys, that they wouldn't use good OPSEC. They once said, we don't worry too much about whole disk encryption because 9 times out of 10, you ask the bad guy for the password and they give it to you. So it's a different environment they're starting to work in now. It was inevitable, where the bad guys are more sophisticated, they have more resources, and they're in fact are using technologies to protect themselves just as we use those technologies. And I can understand the frustration of law enforcement, but goodness, this has been going on for decades.
I mean, if the big beef is that it was easy and now it's harder and that's their main complaint, then I guess work more. We give them billions of dollars a year to do this, so I don't have a lot of pity if their job gets a little tougher.
According to Wired, the OPSEC guide mentions the Tor browser, the Tails operating system, CryptoCat, which is a well-designed, secure public key crypto messaging system, Wicker, I'm not familiar with, Telegram, Hushmail and ProtonMail for email, Red Phone and Signal for encrypted phone communications. Gmail, the guide notes, is only considered secure if the account is opened using false credentials and is used with Tor or a VPN. Android and iOS are only secure when communications are routed through Tor. They advise disabling the GPS tagging feature on mobile phones to avoid leaking location data when taking photos.
Unless you're John McAfee, then please keep doing it.
Well, that's the irony. I mean, again, this is what the police are telling us, but in France, they found that phone with unencrypted GPS data, and that was how that was what led them to the apartment where several of the terrorists or alleged terrorists were planning. Do we have to call them alleged if they're terrorists? I think we still do.
Yeah, I think we still have to say alleged, but mostly terrorists, if you will. At least terrorist adjacent.
I think they're kind of self-identified as terrorists.
Okay.
I don't think they're like
they admit it. Yeah.
looking for trial.
Yeah. It's actually, this OPSEC manual is fairly good. The only thing I would disagree with is maybe saying iMessage, because they're assuming it's impervious to. Apparently, even terrorists believe Apple's marketing message, which is impressive. you have to give them that.
They're already in their own reality distortion field because of their ideology.
Yeah, even terrorists are subject to the reality distortion field.
What happens to the actual curvature of space in that area?
Wow.
I don't know. That's terrifying.
So again, I don't know what the provenance is of this OPSEC manual, but it's
as in who wrote it.
Yeah.
Okay. Someone with a lot of time on the App Store, it looks like.
All right. Well, is there anything else to say about the story? I mean, we're seeing a lot of coverage, of course, in mainstream media. I just thought, as technologists, I think it's important that we weigh in with both support for law enforcement. Yeah, I want to be protected, but at the same time, some common sense about math.
Yes.
Right.
Although it's helped us understand Congress a little bit better, I feel, because whenever I watch people,
they don't
Congress,
seem to understand
exactly.
math.
So it's kind of been a culling of the herd in a way, because people will say dumb things about encryption that sound moderate and fair when they're just not possible mathematically, to your point. And so I've managed to cross people off my list of like morons. And I've been.
You're not going to have many members of Congress left after you start crossing those people.
It's down to 2, and they're from Montana. They haven't said a word in 4 years. But other than that, everyone else is fine.
By the way, an update on the story we talked about last week. We mentioned that Carnegie Mellon had been kind of co-opted by the NSA, or the FBI, I should say, which allegedly paid them $1 million to crack Tor so that the FBI could find some suspects. Carnegie Mellon said, "We didn't make $1 million. We were forced to do this. We were served with a subpoena to hand over research unrelated or related to unmasking the identities of users on the Tor network." So I just want to make sure that we mention that, correct the record.
Isn't it pronounced Carnegie?
I don't know.
Chat room.
I don't think so.
I know it's Pulitzer, not Pulitzer.
Really?
Yeah, but
right.
Carnegie?
I thought it was Carnegie. I thought it was an East Coast.
It's Scottish. It's Scottish.
Oh, well, okay.
Carnegie.
Also, it's Silicon Valley, not Silicon Valley. I will cry.
Please don't say Silicon Valley.
Thank
OSX or DOS.
This is pain.
In any of those 3 cases, I shall write you.
Wait, what's OSX?
OSX. People say OSX. You don't say
OS 10.
OS 10.
OS 10. Okay, good. I don't talk about operating systems.
You're a wise woman.
My version enough to know.
Connie Chung very famously, many years ago, probably 20 years ago now, was interviewing Bill Gates and said, this MS-DOS operating system, tell me about that. And
that is inappropriate on every possible level.
That was kind of the end of the line on that one.
Well, Chelsea Handler did a tour in Silicon Valley and called it Silicon Valley the whole time, and she was corrected by somebody, and she decided to just go with it.
I think I would stay with it.
It was kind of hilarious.
It's funny.
The commenter says, Unix DOS trace. Oh, man, that's terrible. As far as jokes go, you're fired. Yeah. Whoever you are, failed.
All right, moving on. Actually, we'll talk about the 30th anniversary of Windows in a bit.
All right.
Prepare your
good time.
Windows anecdotes. You guys are all too young to even remember. You were not even born when Windows
I was
came
negative
out.
4.
Jeez Louise.
Sorry.
Our show today is Movember. Movember is the month of November when we all grow. None of you did it. No. We all grow beards and mustaches to raise awareness of men's health. If you are or are not shaving this month, I want to let you know about Harry's, because at some point you're going to want to shave off that luscious growth that you've created. And by the way, Harry's supports Movember. You would think, really, a razor company supporting Movember? No, they do. They do. In fact, They donate to Movember. $5 off your first purchase when you mention TWIT5, and $5 when you buy the Movember kit. But the real key to Harry's, my friends, is the fabulous Harry's razor. That's what made Harry's name way back in like 3 years ago when they bought the factory. There we go. Here's the razor blades. When they bought the factory, one of the nice things about Harry's blades is if you own the factory, and they own this factory in Germany, you can design your blades for performance, for sharpness, and sell them direct to your customers without having that middleman markup. So, when you go get that Gillette razor at the drugstore and it's $4 a blade, you won't be paying that. It's about half that from Harry's. Over 1 million guys now, and I take a little credit for this, have made the switch to Harry's. The website's great. It takes less than 30 seconds to place an order. I use Harry's every day. I love it. It's the best shave I've ever had. You get the kit for very affordable price. In fact, if you get the Truman, $15, and then you're going to save $5 with our offer. That means $10 to get started. And then, of course, you're going to get your regular shipments of Harry's blades, Harry's cream, and all the Harry's accoutrements. There you go. That's the Truman. Harry's, HARRYS.com. Enter the offer code TWIT5 at checkout to save $5. And we thank Harry's. I will find out how much they raised through for Movember through their Movember kits.
Also, as a PSA, if you're a dude and you're doing Movember just to not shave for a month, points.
Really?
When in doubt, be lazy. Just let it all
Well, but when it comes time to shave those Movember whiskers off, make sure you go with Harry's.
I just helped the ad by accident. That's all right.
No, you know what the truth is?
That kind of show.
Even if you're growing a mustache or beard, you still got to, you got to.
That's true.
Clean up. Like I see, you got a nice clean beard there with you.
You are a beautiful, beautiful man. Is that what you wanted me to say? I was confused.
I've been trying to convince them to do a women's line that I would call Harriet's, but they, so far, have turned their back on my brilliant idea.
Get on that, Harry's. Get on it now.
Wouldn't Harriet's be good?
Pretty good.
They actually have apps. Thank you. In a chat room, D-Soul's reminded me they have apps now for iOS, so you can order right from the smartphone. Everybody's got to have an app, right?
I do not have an app.
Did you see?
I don't actually think you do. I don't think everyone needs an app. I think people got a little too excited about needing an app, and then they realized that 8 people were going to download it, and that the average person downloads 0 apps per month, and that it's a huge waste of resources. No offense against Harry's.
You realize that you're speaking to somebody who's currently spending tens of thousands of dollars to develop iOS and Android apps for Twit, right?
Oops.
I don't think
that's your personal Rick Perry moment. We're going to build apps for iOS and Android and
you realize.
Oops. I can't.
I think there's just a lot of kind of people questioning.
I completely agree with you. Yeah. I completely agree.
You have a big following. You're going to get people to download your app. A lot of other people don't have the daily or weekly use case.
Actually, we have a good use case. And I think any video or audio podcast would have a use case. You can use a podcast app to subscribe, but
for sure.
But it used to be the website, and then we spent a lot of money on websites, was the place that you would find out about us and what we're doing. But I realized, not so long ago, it took me a while, for the light bulb went on, that people don't need the website anymore. What they need is an app, and an easy app that will allow you to watch live, listen live, subscribe to the shows you want. Anyway, you're right, too many apps. I'll try to get my
now
money
available
back.
at all fine twit.tv stores around your local area. Drop in.
Well, the irony is we didn't even need to do apps because we have very nice fans. There are many apps available.
They
there are 3 different Twit apps on the new Apple TV. 3. 4 now, Curtis? Wow.
That's where you need to have apps in the Apple TV, not in the App Store. I think there's such a part of the problem is that there's been no curation on Google or Apple's part whatsoever, or no sort of way to really optimize for app developers. But on Apple TV, it's 100% curated. And so if you're in there, you've made it, and you're going to have a built-in following.
Well, what about this thing Google announced this week? App streaming. Google search results are now going to include app content. Mm-hmm. Wild, right? And I think a very good thing, in exact response to what you're talking about, Erin, because if you have an app, I think the example they gave was at Hotels Tonight. So if you searched for hotels right now in Chicago, you would, of course, on a Google search get their normal results, but they are also going to give you pages from the Hotels Tonight app, which is
This is great.
Talk about discovery for Hotels Tonight. That's fabulous.
Do you remember?
That's like playing huge defense. Google is, because they've realized that all those very, very valuable clicks that they would have gotten from normal Google search on mobile are just going straight to Hotel Tonight.
Right.
And so Google's not getting that click money from the mobile web. And so they've been scrambling to try to figure this out for a really long time. And this is a really cool and smart way for them to kind of get in the middle of that transaction that they were previously getting cut out of.
Now the apps. Go ahead, Dan.
A non-linear bridge between. You remember in the early days of the App Store, we kind of fretted a little bit and said, well, we're building all of these islands that stand apart from each other. What they've built here is this kind of non-linear bridge that connects all of those little islands.
I think it's very intriguing. Now, Google has to work with the publisher. The publisher has to agree. And apparently what's happening is Google's running the app on its server somehow to extract the information from the app. So it's a really interesting.
Really?
Yeah, something weird's going on.
How does that work? So like Google is running Hotel Tonight on their
yeah, because it's up-to-date information, right? It's current information.
Yeah, that's...
But you have to really trust Google to not steal all your stuff. I mean, you're going to run your instance on their servers as well as your own. I mean, that's an intense amount of like hand-holding, I feel.
Well, it's
and also what's Google going to do with all of that data? That's like, it's bad enough that Google owns so much data on me as it is, but now combining that with all the other little independent apps that I use is a little daunting.
Erin, what have you been up to? I'm very curious now.
But wait a minute. No, but wait a minute. First of all, it's a very limited trial, and you have to have Android. It's only a limited number of apps. You have to be on Wi-Fi. It won't work on LTE. Hotel Tonight, Chimani, Daily Horoscope. There are a couple of horoscope apps.
Why?
The New York.
Why?
People like their horoscopes.
Well, if you're searching for, okay, so I'm searching. My birthday's in a week. I want to know Sagittarius, and I'm searching for it. If you're Google, you want to give people the best information, right? So what you want to do is not just kind of, what do I get if I search for
Sagittarius? What does that even mean?
Means
happy birthday, by the way.
I understand
that's the right answer.
But legitimately, what's the supposed?
So, well, look here. If I search for Sagittarius, I don't know. It's whenever November 22nd through December 21st.
What does it mean, though?
Nothing. It's meaningless.
Well, then why are we talking about it?
It's astrology. You've heard of that, right?
I have, but I don't care.
I'm just saying they have 2 astrology apps. If you search,
some people do, Alex. It's possible.
Yes, but Erin, I'm right and they're wrong. So,
Well, admittedly, I doubt very much the position of the moon and stars had anything to do with my personality.
Yeah, you couldn't fix that.
There's nothing. But look what happens if I search for Sagittarius. I get Sagittarius.com, free horoscopes. I get, a bunch of sites. I get Wikipedia. Whereas it would be, I think, a better search from my point of view as the user if I got some actual horoscopes popping up from an astrology app, right? So that's the idea. Or Hotels Tonight's probably more useful. If I'm looking for a hotel, I would want to have actual hotels, and I could book. And you click a link, it pulls you back into the app, I guess.
Hey, Erin, what's your star sign?
I'm a Pisces.
Sun
You're
sign.
a sun sign. You're a Pisces. I'm a Cancer. You're a Sagittarius. Dan, weigh in.
Aquarius.
Yep, that's why we don't like you. All right, fair enough.
The tone of his voice in saying that was like, "Are you going to use this against me?"
Sorry, I'm just having fun. Anyways, I mean, I think it's cool they're delving into apps in this way. I'm not surprised by it because it's another trove of data for Google to index. But I will be curious about how many apps are actually willing to concede.
Why wouldn't you?
Well,
yeah.
Because you want to.
Let me tell you, because
you want Google, or you want Google out of it. If you're Kayak, for example, people go straight to Kayak to book that thing. Why do they need Google getting in the middle there?
Yeah,
they would rather have
because
just
discovery.
More loyal.
Discovery.
Yeah, perhaps. But
I'll give you a perfect example. I would love it if Google would take the next step and index podcasts, so that if you searched for Google streaming search or streaming app search, one of the things that might show up is Twit with a link right to that part of the podcast. That's to my benefit. That doesn't take anything away from me. That helps my discovery. That helps Hotel Tonight's discovery, doesn't it?
But you're also not buying search ads, so Google doesn't have a huge incentive to work with you.
Right. Erin, do you think this is a play to get more app discovery dollars in the door for Google? Because it's been a big Facebook revenue stream about apps selling.
I think it's different than that. I think it's because it doesn't seem like this is related to their ads business, but it is kind of an extension of something that they announced earlier this year. They have this kind of campaign called Micro Moments, where they're basically trying to get in every time anyone searches for anything. They want to sort of be there with really rich information. And one of the categories that they really highlighted was hotels. And it's like on mobile search, basically. And I think it's on Android and iOS. The results are really, really rich. It has the pricing, it's geolocated. So it's a really rich ad that kind of mimics the app experience. And so I think this is just an extension of this. They want people to come to mobile search first instead of going straight to the app.
So that paragraph is why I read it.
But wait a minute,
because
stop.
that was perfect.
You guys are so deeply cynical about Google. It hurts me. It hurts me.
Wait, because we acknowledge that Google's a business?
No, they are a business. But what is Google's goal? Google's goal is to give users the information they want. If you're searching for this information, that doesn't mean you want to fire up an app. Which app do you fire up? What you would love is to type in the search or use, OK, Google will give you that result too, and say, I need a hotel in Chicago. And then Google doesn't just limit itself to websites, but wherever that information is, pulls it up. That's what users want. This doesn't have to be some deeply cynical ad ploy. It's trying to give users what they want in search, right?
I think Google always is striving to do both, obviously.
Well, that's how they make a living. I'm not saying they're not making a living. They ought to make a living.
They wouldn't do it if it was a bad experience, and I agree with you. It is a good experience, and it's smart on their part, but this has been something they've been working on for a while.
I feel bad because anything Google does, people look through the lens, and I guess it's your job because you're cynical people. Amen. Look through the lens.
For journalists.
That's your job. Look through the lens of, and I try to too, but it doesn't give them a little bit of credit. Maybe they're just, they're trying to give you a better search experience. And to me, this sounds like a better search experience. I'm sorry, it's Dan's turn. Go ahead, Dan.
Well, it could force a really interesting, I'm curious what you guys think about this. It could force a really interesting competitive response from Apple and Amazon. And I think that really could make a better, I mean, being cynical is the correct way to think about all things. I agree. But I mean, it could force a really interesting competitive response, which is what we say we like from Apple and Amazon and other ecosystem builders. And I would love to see something similar from Apple. I think that those iOS apps tend to be a little more robust than Android apps, or at least for my preference. And I'd love to see something competitive.
Mm-hmm. Why do people give Apple a free pass and then they say Google is to steal all your stuff and they're horrible people?
Well, my girlfriend works for Google, so I've been told to say that Google is a great corporation to work for and a really important part of the national economy.
It's interesting you should say that because the chairman had already decided you couldn't possibly have a girlfriend.
Oh, well, they were mostly right, actually, until recently. No, I mean, I think that we give...
Oh, so she doesn't know you that well yet.
She's in Virginia right now. I'm going to be in trouble when she gets back. No, I think that we give Google less of a free pass because they are more in our lives. I mean, Apple is notoriously good at hardware and bad at software. But, we all use Gmail, we all use Google services, and so we have a much higher data footprint, I feel, inside of the Google ecosystem compared to Apple. And so that's why I care a little more.
It's about what they want from us. Like, Apple is only trying to sell us products, and so they don't need our personal data at all. Google and Facebook are trying to put ads in front of us, and the more targeted they are with the more data they have, the more they can charge for those ads.
Oh, so now
their business model is all about gathering data on us.
I'm taking away your title as cynic. If you actually believe that Apple doesn't care about your personal data, then you are a Pollyanna. You're not a cynic.
No,
Apple absolutely wants your personal data. They keep it to themselves. That's the only difference.
Okay, you might be right. Wrong. Their business model is not aligned, or it does not depend on them having.
Talk to the guy who runs iAds. What his business model is.
Is that still a thing?
It's still a thing.
It's really much of a success, and that's why Apple's, sort of using this moment to be a privacy advocate because their ads business isn't really.
But I think that just works their model. In 10 years, Apple aspirationally wants to be as much of a data company as Google can be. They're just very smart about directing their competencies, and their competencies are hardware. I totally believe what you're saying, and I've made the same argument. I just also don't believe that no company is altruistic, and all companies want all things.
I'm in it for the profit. You're in it for the profit. We're not doing what we do. We love it.
True.
But one has to make a living. And I think Google truly does want to organize the world's data and make it more available to people. They see that as a very positive goal. And yes, they'd like to make money while they're doing it. Apple originally was all about making computing easy and accessible to the masses. I'm not sure that they actually have kept true to that goal. I feel like Apple, says, "Oh, this iPhone thing really sells well. We got to let's go all in on this."
This is why I work for Verizon. I want to support overpriced, bad cell phone service everywhere.
Yeah. But I think Apple, absolutely Apple is smart to say we're the privacy company, and I think that they have to walk the walk if people are going to believe that. But it doesn't mean Apple doesn't want to know this information. They just say, well, but we're going to keep it to ourselves.
That's terrifying, but okay. Yes. I mean, everything says correct. I just don't like it. I wish that was not the case, but yeah, it's accurate.
Yeah, and actually it's a disadvantage in some regards because it's hard to compete with things like Google Now, which really rely on Google exposing everything it knows about you, right? Google is in the probably unenviable position of having to let people know what it knows in order to give them the services it wants. Apple can pretend it knows nothing.
Well, Donald Rumsfeld said there are known knowns, there are unknown unknowns, there's known unknowns, and unknown knowns. So there you go.
Did you memorize that?
No, I just haven't memorized because I'm smart.
You memorized that?
Like a year ago.
Did you sit in front of a mirror and
practice it? Before Twit, I go home and I practice my jokes.
Because that is
Rumsfeld quotes.
That is not Donald Rumsfeld quote. It's not the kind of thing that just trippingly comes to the lips.
Dude, we're all dorks. I mean, this is part of our general lexicon. So
it was a great quote.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, Rumsfeld, really.
Let's take a break. I do want to celebrate 30 years of Windows. We're going to do that in a bit. But first, let's take a look at what you missed. If you missed anything this week on Twit.
Previously on Twit.
I seem to have lost my dog in Fallout 4. Well, I traded him for the robot with the flame coming out of his butt. But now I can't find him anymore.
In any other context, this would be nonsense words.
Twit Live Specials.
Pedestrian signal lights.
Oh.
Everybody's on those little hovercraft things riding down the street. Now you come to the corner. And
Don't you hate it, though, when the guy leaves his left turn ear on all day? I hate that.
That is so
hey,
annoying.
buddy, your ear's on.
Tech News Tonight.
There is really no area of our lives, public or personal, that Facebook does not want to get up all into. Soon, when you change your relationship status on Facebook, you will have options beyond just blocking your ex. According to Facebook, you'll be presented with screens that will allow you to see less from your ex, limit what your ex can see of you, and edit your photos, just like we used to do with the tools we had back in the 90s. Back then, we called them scissors.
Twit. We're no strangers to love. You know the rules, and so do I.
Somebody's saying, when did Windows Weekly add a laugh track? I like it.
Lenny.
We need to do that more often. I like having a live studio audience. We have a nice studio audience today. Thank you for being here. If you want to be in the show, be part of the show, just email tickets at twit.tv. There's a guy dressed up as a chef out there.
Actually, his hat's quite nice. Should I put it on?
You want to wear his hat?
Can I wear his hat?
Ask Roberto if he'll let you
Roberto,
wear
can I borrow
his
your hat?
30 years of Windows. It was on November 20th, 1985, that Windows won. This is like a coronation. He's handing. I now pronounce you king of all cooks.
That is badass.
Well, I'm known for my amazing fashion sense, so Leo's story is crap, and I'm here wearing a hat. So, hey,
This is
how's
good.
it going?
I think anybody who tunes in right now is puzzled.
Puzzled indeed. So before the show started, and you guys were not here for this, there was a very well-dressed gentleman singing songs in Leo's chair, and he was wearing this hat.
Yeah.
Now I'm wearing this hat, but I can't sing, so,
He was singing Italian songs.
Those are the Italian songs.
Who here is old enough to remember Windows 1.0 besides me?
Where's Michael? There he is.
None of you guys. That's depressing. If you remember it, you are officially old. That's what the register says. November 20th, 1985. And you got to see the picture of Bill Gates showing this off somewhere. He looks like he's 12. Windows 1.0, it's kind of, when you look at it, it's kind of interesting because it was tiled windows. They weren't overlapping. It wasn't really Windows as we know it. It was a DOS shell. DOS was still sitting behind there. You had to have at least PC-DOS 2.0. You needed 2 double-sided floppy disk drives to run it. 256K.
Wow.
Not megs, not gigs, K of memory. and apparently required something that very few people had to have in those days, a graphics card. You could run some DOS programs in windowed mode, but most of them would just take over the screen. About 500,000 copies sold in the first 2 years.
It went gold, in other words.
Semi-gold,
Okay.
half a gold.
I like this because when you look back at the very first versions of Windows and you look at the current version of Windows, it's still kind of similar. It's squares, it's menus, it's written word. It's dramatically different, but also very much still the same. And I like to appreciate our kind of computing history in that way. But Erin, what was the first version of Windows you used?
Probably 95.
Yeah, that was the first really good version.
3.1 was good.
Yeah,
3.1 was fantastic.
I remember looking at 3.1 and thinking, wow. In fact, Microsoft's really kind of done something here. And I remember talking to Steve Jobs in 94.
Name dropping.
And he said, well, this was when he was out at Apple, right?
I know.
But he couldn't stop talking about Apple. He said, I gave them a 10-year lead, right? When we came out with the Macintosh in 84, 1 year before Windows 1, we had a 10-year lead, and they pissed it away. And is
that his voice sound, Steve? That's how you think Steve Jobs sounds? I hear them making some movies about him.
And they pissed it away. No, he was pissed because he said we had a lead. This, you're looking at Windows 3.1.1 running on the airport system in Orly, France, where it crashed. And that's how people know that the menu system in Orly, France was running Windows 3.1. Minesweeper, Solitaire. Those were some games. Remember those?
I still play them, so I can't really say I remember them. But
No,
familiar.
They've endured.
They have endured.
I mean, what else do you do at the office? Come on.
Apparently, Windows 3.1 is still embedded in many, like ATMs. It's the embedded version of Windows 3.1 is still quite around, not just at the Orly airport. Let's see, other memories of Windows.
I mean, Windows 7 was amazing, and then 8 happened. That's the most important recent thing, I feel.
7 was very good.
7 was solid.
So XP was, okay, NT was good. Windows 2000 was awesome. Windows XP was trying to merge the consumer version of Windows, the Windows 95, 98 ME line, into the Windows NT 2000 line. And so for that reason alone, I think it was good. It was much more robust. Remember 98 and 95?
98 was a
crashed
disaster.
A lot. Blue screen of death, all of that. But XP was pretty good. By the time Service Pack 2 came out, XP was secure because they turned on the firewall on XP. 7, I think, was very, very good. Vista, not so hot.
We almost forgot Vista entirely. There's that thing in between.
Vista, like Windows ME. You know what? Windows ME, Vista, and Windows 8. They're all the same kind of. Something went horribly wrong at the factory.
Bob, Zune, the usual things. But I'm really kind of curious. Windows 10's been out now for a little bit. Dan, what do you think about Windows 10?
I like it quite a bit. I upgraded the day it came out. It was full of bugs and weirdness, but within a couple of weeks, it seemed to work itself out.
It's gotten
is
more
a return to form. Yeah. It's a return to form. I mean, it's something I think beyond the features, it's something that feels comfortable and familiar to consumers, and I think that that's maybe something that is undersold in the history of Windows. But it's that comfort. You feel at home in that operating system.
I agree. Here's Steve Ballmer from 1986 talking about Windows.
No.
Do we have audio?
Turn it up a little bit. This is a bad rip from a VHS tape, and I have to apologize.
It looks like porn from the 80s.
Used car salesman.
This is obviously a joke that was made for a Microsoft sales meeting.
Ballmer was a joke.
But he's selling Windows 3, or actually this is Windows.
An appointment calendar, a card file, a notepad, a clock, a control panel, a terminal, a print spooler, a RAM driver, and can you believe it? Reversi. That's right. All these features in Reversi, all for just how much did you guess? 500? 1,000? Even more? No, it's just $99. That's right. It's $99. It's an incredible value, but it's true. It's Windows from Microsoft. Order today. P.O. Box 286. DOS is kept in Nebraska.
Very strange.
It's amazing that Windows 1 had more capability than the Apple Watch.
Well, is that amazing?
I'm trying to be sarcastic.
No, I think you're right, though.
I know.
But one thing you have to praise Windows 1 for, it never told you to stand up. Our show today brought to you by, let's take a break. We'll come back with more. Great panel. Erin Griffith is here from Fortune.com. Always nice to have you. You lost your toilet paper mic stand. What happened?
Oh, yeah. I had a little time to plan ahead and actually get back the professional mic stand that had been borrowed. So, yeah, I was thinking maybe there would be some disappointment that we didn't have the artisanal cardboard makeshift one from last time.
There is.
But that's awesome.
Sorry.
It was very impressive.
Did you make it yourself?
No, my fiance made it. It was.
And that's why she's going to marry him.
Duct tape, cardboard, and a really crappy regular mic.
Yeah.
Dan Patterson also here now with his new job. I'm really thrilled to see him join up with Jason Hunter, another one of our favorites at techrepublic.com. And Alex Wilhelm, no one knows where he came from.
Swamp, actually.
The Swamplands. He's at TechCrunch.
I'm a Chernobyl, baby.
And has the best Twitter handle of the bunch, at Alex.
Don't follow me.
Don't follow me, he says. Our show today brought to you by lynda.com, lynda.com. It's a great site for people like you, people who, I know people watch, you were asking before the show, Erin, why do people watch this show? Because people like to learn, they're curious, they want to expand their minds. And that's what lynda.com does. If you want to take better photos, you want to learn to code, you want to learn how to use that app that your boss is expecting you to use tomorrow at work, lynda.com. It has everything you need to feed your curious mind. What's nice is you pay one flat rate once a month, and you have access to all 3,000 plus on-demand video courses. You don't have to choose your major at lynda.com. You can dibble and dabble, do a little bit of Excel, a little bit of Word, a little bit of negotiating, a better raise, a little bit of Photoshop. Oh, I love Pixel Playground with Burt Monroy. That is one of the best shows ever. New courses just went up. Excel tips up and running with Word 2016. That's one of the things they do that's great. They partner with the publishers so that they have courses ready the day the new software comes out. So they were ready when Office 2016 came out. Essential training for QuickBooks Pro 2016. There's a weekly series on communications tips that can help you hone your communication skills to deal with difficult people and influence others. I was looking at you. And influence others and confidently speak in public at a moment's notice. We are big Lynda fans here. We have an account for the company because, and a lot of companies do that because if our staff wants to learn more about how to use Premiere, the editing software they use, or anything, we like for them to be able to take those courses. Every course comes with a complete transcript so you can search for anything you're looking for and jump right to that part of the course. You can, of course, download tutorials, watch them on the go on iOS and Android. Here's the deal. Go to lynda.com right now. lynda.com/twit2, lynda.com/twit and the number 2, and you get 10 days. You could get 10 days free. You could get a whole course in 10 days. You could touch a few different courses. lynda.com. Use the offer code TWIT2. I don't know if there's anything to say about this now or not. We were talking about Windows. Of course, Windows 10 is the current version. I guess they're calling it the November update, which is actually a very big, almost service pack. A service pack for Windows 10 went out this week. But Ed Bott has pointed out that the ISO that Microsoft offers for download on their site suddenly got changed. They were you can upgrade normally, or you can go to Microsoft's site and get the ISO, which is a file you can turn into, a bootable disk or something. For some reason, actually, I'm going to go check and see if Ed has written an update to this. But for some reason, initially Microsoft was offering that version of the ISO, the updated version for the ISO, and then it disappeared. And they went back to the July 29th edition, the fifth version, I don't know, 15, is it 1511? The upgrade option worked for a week, but then this weekend, the new files were pulled from the download server.
Well, if EdBot says it's true.
Yeah, Ed's very good.
There, you know? I mean,
So
EdBot's
here's
amazing.
the update, which I see now. A Microsoft spokesperson says, yeah, it was intentional.
It wasn't a J.K. Long moment, you know.
The November update was originally available via the MCT tool. That's the ISO. But we've decided that future installs should be through Windows Update. People can still download Windows 10 using the MCT tool if they wish, but they'll get, I'm parenthesizing here, they will get the older version. And then the November update will be delivered via Windows Update. Very strange. Ed says that explanation is hard to accept. 9 days after the company encouraged people to use this tool for upgrades, it's pulled with no explanation.
So here's what I think's going on. And I'm a Microsoft watcher to some capacity. Not as good as Ed or Mary Jo Foley or Tom Warren, but, you know, I'm with that crew a little bit. And I think that Microsoft is currently figuring out how to do this. Because going back to 7 and 8, 8.1, Vista, the whole crew, I mean, they were doing these really episodic updates, and now they're doing a much faster cadence. And I think there's still a lot of cobwebs that have to knock off their cycles to actually do this. And so this sounds like a mistake, or something they had to fix along the way, but nothing that's really nefarious or too negative.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's definitely growing up, and there's growing pains involved with that. I mean, I'm not surprised.
That's so true. And seeing, you know, interdepartmental communication styles that haven't happened previously. I do believe this new cadence of Windows is such a right way to phrase this period that they're in. They are totally, or they're trying to do something that is totally outside of their corporate memory or ability in the past to do. And I think that this is something like the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing.
I think there might have been a technical issue of some kind with that update, right? But that's where Microsoft, I agree with you both that the new Microsoft has really kind of Satya Nadella has shaken things up. They communicate better. But one thing they're still bad at, maybe even worse at, is communicating with the public. They just don't know how to tell their story very well.
No.
And when things like this happen, they just shut up. They don't, people have questions, and the response is non-responsive.
To give a shout out there, so one of their guys, Gabe Howell.
Gabe is great.
Gabe is great.
And follow him on Twitter, because that's about the only person at Microsoft who's saying anything.
I call him Nerd Jesus. He doesn't like that very much, but there you go. I think they've really done a good job in the last year of becoming a little more transparent and a little more open. And because I talk to them pretty much every day. Yeah. And I felt a change in the winds, if you will. And
they're trying.
They're definitely working on it. They're never going to be Apple level cool because they're Microsoft. That's cool. Right. It's fine. They make a lot of money. Whatever.
Right.
But I think certainly over the last cycle of Windows, there's been so much more disclosure and transparency that I've had a much more fun job covering them because I know more stuff. And I like.
What's his name again, Alex?
Gabe Aul. A-U-L.
Gabe Aul.
Yeah. Gabeaul. Also, aka Nerd Jesus.
I don't think he calls himself that.
I call him that.
But he's at Gabe Aul on Twitter. And, he's
followed.
Apparently, he's with the engineering team. He's a vice president and apparently has been somehow given some dispensation to speak.
Well, they picked the right guy because I met him before this whole Windows 10 thing happened. And he's actually incredibly nice in person, too. Ask him about the ferry incident and the red car if you have a chance. I can't tell more than that, but ask him. It's a really good story.
We've had him on Windows Weekly, and he was very, very smart and fun, and yes, he's a good communicator. He has nothing to say about this particular issue. In fact, his last tweet, which was yesterday, says the Windows, or 2 days ago, says Windows 10 mobile build 10.586.11 is now available in the slow ring.
But look how many favorites it got. I mean, this guy's tweets have become like gospel for Microsoft fans.
Yeah. It reminds me a little bit of Major Nelson, Larry Herb, who's been the guy who's kind of stepped forward on the Xbox side, too.
Who's the Apple equivalent of that, or the Google equivalent of that?
Apple is way too controlled to let an individual talk.
Have a voice. Okay, so then what about Google then?
Google has Matt Cutts, who we've had on many times.
Love Matt Cutts. Great guy.
Matt is like employee 10, so he has a certain amount of kind of freedom to speak. But Google, like Apple, really does, when we try to get an interview with somebody at Google, they've always got to go through PR. They've always got to get approval. And it often ends up being not approved. So,
whereas with Microsoft, you can DM their executives and they will respond without PR. It's fantastic. Yeah. Try that.
Gabe apparently doesn't tweet over the weekend. Somebody's telling me. Good man. He has a life.
How dare he?
I like him even more now. Sorry, I don't tweet on the weekends. But we are still wondering, and it may be nothing at all, but why did they pull the November update from the media creation tool all of a sudden? I think there's a bug. That's what I think.
But
I think
there's no shame in that.
Yeah.
Software's hard.
And as far as we know, they're still offering the update. If you have not yet received the update to 15.11, you should get it. I got it on my Surface Book a few days ago. Doesn't seem to really. It fixes some things. Doesn't seem to change much.
Do you like the Surface Book?
Love it.
Okay, because I do too.
You know why I love it? And I'm really convinced touch is really more important than Apple gives anybody credit for. And even though Windows was not really designed to be a touch OS, in fact, all of the things we hated about Windows 8 were because they were trying to add touch. They went back to the desktop. However, even right now, I'd like to be able to scroll the browser up and down with my finger. There's just times when you want to reach out and touch it.
I really hate that I agree with you here, but I do.
Well, what's interesting is Apple has decided that they're going to have a kind of replacement for the desktop, this massively huge iPad Pro, but they'll never put touch. Tim Cook has reiterated, we're not merging iOS and OS X, and we're not going to put touch on OS X. This is their touch-first operating system, and I have to say, I kind of would like to have a MacBook with touch. Am I? You and I are the only ones?
I talk too much.
No,
Erin,
I
what do you think?
totally agree.
Yeah, let Dan weigh in on this. I don't have a strong opinion.
You don't care?
No, I mean, okay, fine.
Do you use an iPad? Do you use an iPad?
I've tried to do real work on an iPad before, and it was horrible.
Yeah.
And this was a couple of years ago, and I'm sure that it's gotten a lot better since then. But I just desperately wished that I had a laptop. And, I think the Surface probably does a really great job of merging those two. And if Apple tried, I'm sure that they could do a great job too, but they've decided they don't want to.
Yeah.
I mean, do you guys actually believe Tim Cook when he says that both would be have less functionality and be worse off if they kind of converge them?
Dan?
No, I don't believe. No. I think he says that until it's
until it
convenient
happens
for them to
Until he
change.
does it.
Yeah,
That's actually how Apple works,
Microsoft's-
isn't it? Yeah.
The
Well,
new
Steve Jobs
Surface
said,
Book is incredible.
no one reads books, and then bam, iBooks. Right. So,
Right. Yeah, I think, in fact, I've been convinced of the utility. And I can't do work without a keyboard. I need a laptop. Yep. However, having touch in a laptop is an incredible thing. The two actions do become one. I use my muscle memory and my typey hands for typey things, and then I scroll when I need to scroll.
I don't have any trouble with mixing those two metaphors. No. And Apple also kind of says, oh, it's too far away, you're at arm's length, you're not going to want to touch this. And that's just not been my experience. I have a Chromebook Pixel, the Google Chromebook with touch. It's just natural every once in a while to want to scroll or touch a button. You're not going to use it to close the windows because those targets are too small. But I think you can internalize that. And I seem to have found a nice hybrid way of working that really fits me. The other problem is, of course, as we use tablets, we get used to touching the screen, and then you touch your laptop screen, and nothing happens. I hope you're right, Dan. I hope it's just Apple saying, oh, we're never going to do that until they do.
Well, I have at the office, I run a Surface Book and 2 Apple Cinema displays. So I've got 2 30-inch Apple screens in my Surface Book. And that's
kind of the best of both worlds.
I'm a bit of a traitor. But I always almost touch the Apple screens by accident because I presume they're also touched like the Surface Book is. Yeah. And they're not. And I always get a little surprised by my inability to kind of keep that mentally constant. But I depend on it. I really do care.
Humans are more flexible than they're giving us credit for.
Okay. I'll take
Good article by Lauren Good, by the way, in The Verge, speaking of the iPad Pro. The iPad Pro has an App Store problem, and we actually have been talking about that on MacBreak Weekly for some time. The iPad Pro calls for high-end pro apps that take advantage of the pencil, the real estate, touch. But the problem is the structure of the App Store discourages developers. The kind of developers who might want to make an app for the iPad Pro are not going to because there's no demo. They have to charge more than the App Store really encourages. One example she gives is a program from Bohemian Coding. It's called Sketch. And the founders of Sketch, the designers, say, we are not going to make an iPad Pro app. It's a Mac desktop app. It would be exactly the kind of app, Lauren says, that you think would work perfectly on the Pro. But 2 months ago, One of the developers left a comment saying that they have no plans for an iPad Pro. Version. Yes, it has a beautiful screen, but there's more to consider. Apps on iOS sell for, and this is the key, for unsustainably low prices due to lack of trials. We can't port Sketch to the iPad if we have no reasonable expectation of earning back our investment, and we wouldn't ask people to pay $99 for an iPad app if they can't try it free first. Some people, solve this by making a kind of a freemium, an in-app purchase, so you get some features, and then if you buy more, and I'm not sure why they don't do that. But he says we're a niche app. We have to pay. We have to charge enough to make up for the lack of volume.
Why not have
that seems like a really easy problem to solve.
How?
Apple could easily. I mean, couldn't they just start?
Oh, Apple could solve it.
Preview. Apple could just say, okay, here's a way to preview these apps, and App Store problem solved.
Well, and I think Lauren's right here. I think they're going to have to solve it, or the iPad Pro is going to die stillborn, because the iPad Pro is without specialized apps, is just a giant ass iPad, and it doesn't. I'll show you. It doesn't even take advantage. iOS, for instance, I've got a 12.9-inch screen here, but the icons for iOS are spread way out. They didn't give me a bigger grid, so I've got all this. What is all this space? They've made no concession, in other words, to take advantage of the real estate, and I can live with that if I've got pro apps on here that are phenomenal. And there are a few. There's Procreate, which is an amazing drawing app, and as soon as Apple comes out with a pencil, which they still haven't done, or I guess they're slowly dribbling them out in the store, this will be an amazing way to draw. So there are a few things. I'm not an artist, though, and maybe you're a 3D artist and you'd want to use Sketch, or maybe you're a musician and you'd want to use a high-end music composition program. There's a really nice program on the Surface that they showed off when they released the Surface Book and the Surface Pro 4 that allows you to compose on.
Oh, yes, I saw this.
It's an amazing program, and one of our engineers, Alex Gumpel, studied composition in college, and so he brought it over to show me. What is the name of it? I can't remember. But you get a staff, and you start drawing notes, and it turns the notes into a score. It'll play the score for you.
Yes.
And this is the kind of app, you'd have to charge $100 for it, and it would be worth every penny of it.
Every single penny.
Like Finale or one of these high-end programs. But I don't know, a staff pad. Thank you, chat room. I don't, PS Chops in the chat room told me, staff pad. But I don't see this, it would be wonderful on the iPad Pro. Will they put it to the iPad Pro if they can't recoup the investment of developing it? I don't know. And that would, I think that's going to hurt it.
The other thing Apple could do is just supplement some of these, these app developers with some seed investments. I know they've never done that. They're very, we're the platform. Yeah. But I don't see why, if this became a real problem for them, I don't see why they wouldn't say, okay, we'll give you some money up front and help you recoup it, or we'll, change this one tiny little feature and let people preview the apps. I think Apple could fix both of these pretty easily.
Well, that would only work if Apple had a lot of money. They don't. So unfortunately, I don't think it's economically possible for them to do that.
One of Apple's responses to this complaint, Apple said it paid $10 billion to its developers in 2014. That's through sales in the stores. Developers have made $33 billion to date from the sales of apps and games.
Real numbers, big numbers.
Big numbers. Developers get 70% of revenue, of course. But that's, and Ben Thompson has talked about this too on his blog, but that's fine if you're a $5 game. That's great news. It's not so great if you can only sell 1,000 copies of a program because it's such a limited audience.
But $100, 100 G's,
$100, that might make it.
No, it's for real. But I'm curious why they have bad terms here. Why didn't they anticipate this kind of developer reaction? Because they've been so good at building out a developer advantage, back to your 10 years ahead thing. I'm curious why they made this mistake and why we're seeing this level of blowback.
Because this is not news that Apple doesn't know. We've been talking about this for a long time. For instance, if you make an app and you charge $99 and you want to charge for the next version, the App Store has no mechanism for doing that.
Which is insane. I mean, Apple has a lot of really incredibly smart, software engineers. They have the biggest App Store in the world. Yeah. They lead on this, and yet they're falling down a little bit. Is this a lack of external input to their process? Is this hubris? I wondered why this happens, because there's such
a very good question. Yeah, and these are seemingly such simple solutions. In fact, historically, Apple worked with, before the iPad came out, they worked with developers that they favored, the New York Times and others. I don't know. That's a great question. Why did they go to market with a product without getting a premium experience from a half dozen premium developers?
Yeah. Well, there are a few. They showed a few. We've actually demoed the one that was used to design the 3D printed car. There are a few, but I think that they're going to need more than that to really sell this in quantity. Or maybe not. Maybe they say, hey, an app that sells 1,000 sells 1,000 iPads. We don't care. That's not enough.
Do we think the iPad Pro in its current version is a real mass market device, or is it more of a trial balloon?
Well, that's kind of what I've been saying, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like this is a specialty product.
Okay, because it does look really fun. I mean, just sitting here by it, it does look fantastic. I want to touch it. I want to play with it. It looks really cool. I mean, I don't actually need to. I'm fine. But, it's definitely an appealing package. I mean, the first Surface, for example, is not. The Surface RT was not very good. A lot of ideas, but not execution. This looks like the full deal, but I don't really care as much as I thought I was going to.
Is there a larger question here? Because now we've talked about two different companies, Microsoft and Apple, that it seems like we can see something that they don't see. What is it?
It's always easy in hindsight.
Is that it?
I don't think that's it.
Here we are sitting on the sidelines. It's easy for us to play Monday morning quarterback.
We get accused of that all the time. That's kind of our jobs. It's fun. That's why I do this. That's why I do this, and I don't build computers or software.
Yeah.
But I mean, they have telemetry, they have focus groups, they have research, they have teams, product teams by the dozen. They've got thousands of employees and billions of dollars. And so when they make a mistake, I don't feel the need to be, polite about it. I don't feel the need to pull back my criticism because it's hard.
Also, to be fair, they probably spend a lot more time thinking about this than we do, and they have a much bigger dog in this hunt. This is their business. Shouldn't they be experts better than any of us at running their business?
I would argue that maybe it's not in Apple's DNA to really understand or care that much about professional use cases. They have they have lots of professionals using their stuff, but they don't actually have to go in with the big enterprise sales pitch and really sell a big organization on this kind of thing. So they've kind of worked from consumers and trickled up to companies buying their products. And this is kind of another example of that, where they're kind of starting with a consumer-friendly thing and not really considering the changes that they have to put in place in order to make it appealing to a business use case.
Again, Erin killed that. Another comment.
Well, what we're going to do is take a break. When we come back, another example of a massive company making changes to a product that dismay the users, and nobody cared. But first, Audible.com. I want to talk about my favorite place to get books. I don't read anymore. I got the new Kindle, and I put books on it. But I find I'm so much happier listening to books. And I don't even have as much time as I used to. I used to do a lot of... What are you doing? Are you taking a selfie? Look at that disgruntled Laporte behind you.
You were supposed to notice.
I used to have 2 or 3, maybe 4 hours in the car every single day commuting to San Francisco. That's when I first started listening to Audible back in the year 2000. And I still love Audible. I get 2 books every single month. Are you an Elvis? There's something for everybody. So are you an Elvis Costello fan? Who isn't? Jason, did you get this book yet? Unfaithful Music and Disappearing Ink.
I didn't get this one. I got the Billy Idol autobiography, actually.
Oh, no, you know what? That sounds good, too.
And it's read by him, and it's awesome so far. It's exactly what you want it to be.
This is a new, of course, he called it what? Dancing with Myself, right? Yeah. This is kind of a subgenre of biography or autobiography. I'm really enjoying it. Audible has a lot of them. I read Keith Richards' My Life, Graham Nash's book, and it's really fun as these guys now are kind of looking back at their careers to read these books. Look, Johnny Lydon, Anger is an Energy. Here, let's hear Billy Idol reading a little bit from Dancing with Myself.
It's like putting yourself in a temporary coma for 3 hours. To observers, it appears as if you're gone from this world.
Listen to that voice.
When we began recording in 1988.
That's a man who's lived life.
Is that Smeagol or a man?
To the fullest goal.
I mean, seriously, when I saw that this was there and that he read it, like I didn't even think twice. I got it. I was like, I know this is going to be good.
Who is Billy Idol?
Oh.
I'm just going to show your picture for a second so that we know who asked.
You know who Billy Idol is. Right?
I've heard the name. I have no idea who he is.
Wait, my question is, did Keith Richards, did he read his book?
No, but they found somebody kind of...
He's got better things to do.
Well, you know what's funny? There's the strangest thing happens in this book. It's called Life. And they got a... Here, I'll play a little bit of the narrator, because they got a narrator who sounds like Keith.
To the bar. And here we were.
Oh no! This is so. It starts with Johnny Depp.
Okay. That's what happens. It's really weird. So Johnny Depp reads, and remember, Johnny's a huge Keith Richards fan. In fact, he bases his pirate in the Pirates of the Caribbean basically on Keith Richards, right? It's Keith Richards with a braid. But so Johnny reads the first chapter, and then this other guy comes in who's great, Joe Hurley, who sounds much like. But then at the end of the book, like the last couple of chapters, Joe Hurley says, "And now, Keith Richards." And Richards reads the last 2 chapters. So it's so much fun. It's so much fun. This has become a genre now.
I love it.
I listen to all of these. Eric Clapton, another good one. Simon Vance, who's one of their best readers, does this. But one of the things you find with Audible, of course, the person reading it is huge. And a lot of times authors are not the person to read their books. But when you're listening to audiobooks like, Mick Fleetwood's autobiography, he's a little bit in here. You kind of like hearing from their voices a little bit. But most of the time, you probably don't want to hear like Leonard Skinner reading whiskey bottles and brand new cars.
Actually, that sounds very appealing. But, no. But if I wrote an autobiography and no one would buy it because I'm very boring, but I think I'd have you, Leo. I think I'd have your sultry,
would love
sexy,
to read
Silver Fox voice.
Hey, I'm Alex Wilhelm.
I fell down a staircase.
I am a madman. Bob Odenkirk.
Hey now, I am sitting here.
Hey now, Bob Odenkirk. Don't you love him? Better Call Saul. And it was awesome in season 1 of Fargo as kind of the dumb sheriff. His book, A Load of Hooey, is a collection of new short humor fiction from the Odenkirk Memorial Library.
It's called A Load of Hooey?
A Load of Hooey.
I thought that was your resume.
There's a lot of funny stuff in here. I cannot recommend Audible more highly. I'm a huge fan, as you all know. I recently did a blog post with all 400 books I've ever read on Audible, if you want to.
400?
Something like that, yeah.
So you now read 401 books?
Yeah, I'm a big reader. I love it.
There you go.
Well, that's the nice thing about Audible, because you can listen at times when you wouldn't normally be reading, like as a commute or in the gym. I'd spend a lot of time on the treadmill. Audible really gets me through those. New one from Roger Angel. So let me just recommend, you go to audible.com/twit and the number 2, audible.com/twit2, and you can get 2 books for free. You're going to sign up for the Platinum account. That's a 2-book-a-month subscription. That's the one I have. You also get the Daily Digest of the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, your choice. Oh, new one from Tom Petty. That'd be fun to hear his story. And you'll get those first 2 books, but you'll pay nothing in the first month. The nice thing is you can cancel anytime in the first 30 days, pay nothing, but those books will be yours to keep. They're in your library from now on, as are all the books I've ever listened to on audible.com. So audible.com/twit2, please do me a favor. Check it out. Before I see a movie, before you see The Martian, go to audible.com and listen to the book.
And then go see The Martian. It's an amazing movie.
Yes.
Oh, the audiobook is so good, though.
Yeah, I agree.
Wait, Dan, read the book first, or I'll watch the movie first?
I did the audiobook about a year and a half or so ago. Yeah. And the audiobook is it's great. It is exactly like you're saying, Leo. You can consume that anywhere, and with The Martian, it is everywhere. Walking down the street in the car. I mean, that's a
I have really nice memories of The Martian. Yeah, it's short chapters. It's fun. It's light. Yep. I have really nice memories. Lisa memories of it because my wife and I listened to it together in the car as we were driving on the road to Hana in Hawaii. And it was so much fun. We were listening to this book. We're going through this beautiful scenery. And there's something that happens when you're listening to books. You attach that portion of the book to where you were. I don't know what it is, some weird sensory thing. So now when I listen to The Martian, it's like, oh, I'm back in Hana. It's really cool. Anyway, we could go on and on. And we do. We usually do with these because I love talking about books. Audible.com/twit2. Get your first 2 books free. And I just did the 22nd is my renewal day, so I just got 2 credits. So now I have to decide which of these many books I'm going to get. You don't get free
Audible?
Huh?
You don't get free Audible for all the ads?
No, no.
That's parsimonious.
Yeah, you know what? I never even asked him for it because they give us a lot of money for these ads, so I can afford to pay for my own account.
Thank you for the rent money. Appreciate it.
But B, you know what? I kind of like the arm's length relationship with everything we review. Like I bought this iPad, I bought this laptop, I bought my phone. I kind of want to. Don't you get it?
I really get
Anybody like you who isn't, probably you don't get to do that. You get calls from PR, right?
I try to avoid them.
Nothing worse.
This is why I don't read email. Not reading emails.
I don't want to hear from them.
Yeah, I don't. I want PR out of my life, except for my girlfriend does PR. But aside from that,
I'm fortunate enough that having been in this business a while now, I can afford to buy the products we review, and that's worked out nicely.
So if you need money, call Leo.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying
he's available 7 days a week on twit.tv.
You won't have to do this. Google Plus is the product I was talking about.
I was on the edge of my seat.
Yeah.
The whole
Big
time.
company, doesn't listen to users, makes massive change, and then the irony of this is crickets. Although the regular users of Google Plus were incensed about the new design. I'm not sure why.
I mean, all 8 of them?
That's the problem. They were really
That reminds me of there's a similar situation with Yahoo. I guess Yahoo shut down some message boards thing they had like 3 years ago, and I still get raging angry tweets.
Why don't you
and
ever
emails.
cover
Actually,
this?
This is probably going to just kick up another whole series of them. But constantly, these people who are like, this was our lives. We invested so much into these communities. It was very niche, and that's probably very similar with Google Plus.
I guess there's a lesson there, though. If you create something that people use, even if it's only, if it's a small number internet-wise, like a million,
sure,
that's still a million people you're going to peeve when you kill the thing.
Yeah, but it's Google Plus. I mean, I can't even get mad about it.
Google Plus is a great thing.
Yeah, it's a thing that you used a week 3 years ago. Yeah,
I like Google.
Google
Plus.
minus.
They turn it into Pinterest, basically.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I wish that they would make it better and something that I felt like I was really compelled to use because it ranks so high in search.
Right.
Like the handful of things I shared on Google Plus in 2011 are still on like my first or second search page, or if you search for my name or something. So I would like to make it more active and not things that are.
It fails the Robert Scoble test. If Robert Scoble's still using it, you shouldn't. And
no, he's not using it. I don't see.
I'm just
Scoble
giving him a
on
hard
here.
time. But Scoble was a big fan of FriendFeed and Google Buzz.
I love FriendFeed.
I did too. Before
I actually love Google Buzz.
Google Buzz was amazing, but
and I like Google Plus. But I guess it shows up that you can make a good product, but if people don't, like if everybody doesn't use it.
Well, Snapchat's the opposite. Snapchat is a bad product that everyone uses, so it's kind of ironic.
Why is Snapchat a bad product? It's an awesome product.
It's impossible to use. The UI is designed for.
It's not designed for you. It's designed for 18-year-olds.
No,
Are you calling me old?
theories that
Okay.
I agree. I think it's a poor UI, and I think it's intentionally poor. I think that the entire purpose of using Snapchat is to bend you into doing things they want. It's a very manipulative ecosystem.
And also, I think they don't want it to be I don't think they want your dad to use it. So, I asked my son because I like you, Alex. I thought I can't figure this out. And I said, do you guys have any trouble? So no, we all, we love Snapchat. We know exactly how to use it. I think they teach each other, right? The swipe and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's curious, what action do you think they're trying to manipulate us into doing?
I think they're trying to get us to use the system that they and rules that they determine as opposed to rules that are good design principles. So if we do things their way, we become more invested in their ecosystem as opposed to just doing things the way any social app would. And so it gives us more incentive to return and to become a repeat user. We have to think about it more.
Yeah, but it also makes it more distinctive. They don't have every other social network looks exactly the same. I mean, even now Twitter with turning likes into or faves into likes.
Yeah, so I think I'm saying exactly the same thing. You just said it more eloquently. I
That's
I'm sorry,
interesting.
I'm playing with Snapchat.
Leo was literally sitting here playing with Snapchat like a 14-year-old Wayne, his first iPhone, playing all
He
the
was
sound
so
effects.
bored
We
of
were
our
having a serious conversation.
No,
I'm kind of dying over
I
here.
think Snapchat has, by the way, interesting monetization strategy on Snapchat. So they released for free these overlays, right? Have you played with that? Oops, I swiped out of it. I don't want to buy that lens because this is the new monetization strategy. So
They're selling lenses?
You're doing a selfie. Yeah, they sell lenses.
All right.
So you're doing a selfie. You press and hold your face for a while, and I'll stop talking. Hey, demo gods.
That's not going to be their main way they make money, though.
Well, I don't know. So the idea is they have these faces, and then they retire them, right?
Oh, so they're short term.
Yeah. And if you get attached to one, you can pay 99 cents to keep it forever.
Hey, Erin, do you think Fidelity is impressed by that?
Is that one of their investors?
There was a bunch of headlines over this last news cycle about Fidelity marking down some of their holdings in some of their highly valued startups, and one of them was Snapchat. That's kind of what kicked off the whole news cycle.
I forget, what was the haircut, like 20%?
Yeah, something like that.
20,
I don't
25,
remember
somewhere
exactly.
in there. Fortune's done a really good job, actually, of covering this entire cycle, so points to y'all. Done
Yeah,
really
well,
well.
my colleague Dan Primack has definitely been all over it.
Leo, can you...
There was another story. There was another Reuters story this week, actually, that kind of outlined Snapchat's
See, now they
problems
want
with
money for that.
advertisers.
Aaron, I couldn't hear you. Leo was making unicorn sounds again.
They want
Sorry.
money for that.
Yeah,
99 cents if you want the
unicorn sounds.
Yeah. You know what they give you for free? Flies buzzing around your head. That doesn't seem like, come on. Yeah, that's free.
Look into your
Nice.
house, you know?
Nice.
Aaron, I'm curious. Is this? Look, Tencent has made billions of dollars with stickers and in-app things and
this is
purchases. So I
awesome.
believe
And
this
I
could
can't
work.
hear you. He's still doing it. It's like old man at the
Is this
club
a
trying to
platform?
dance. Freaking sad.
Okay, so
What's your Snapchat handle, Wilhelm? I'm gonna terrorize you, buddy.
Here's how millennial I am. I actually forget. I haven't used it in like a year. So no. I'm a Aaron Griffith
What
on
about
Twitter though.
you think the Aaron Griffith on Twitter? Do you think the Discover didn't you guys use that for a while? I feel like Fortune had a Discover channel, didn't it?
oh God, no.
No?
Fortune?
No.
You think any of Fortune's readers are on Snapchat?
Do you think Fortune's cool, Leo? Come on. Everyone knows it's not cool.
Oh.
I didn't say that.
It's like Boy Scouts.
No, don't put words in Erin's mouth. She wants to keep her job.
But no, to answer your question, Dan, I agree that a lot of the Asian messaging apps have built huge businesses on things like stickers and emojis and that kind of stuff. So it can be a big business, but I don't think that's what Snapchat is ultimately going after. I think that's a nice to have piece of revenue, similar to how Facebook had nice to have Zynga money when they went public.
Right.
I think deep down, though, they're building an ad business, and that's what they want to become, their big source of revenue. They're looking to take TV dollars. That's a much bigger story to tell investors, and that's what got them the $16 billion valuation.
Do you think they'll be successful in that strategy? I mean, I agree, at least externally, with what I see, but I have no idea about the
Snapchat,
particulars.
if you talk to anybody under 25, is totally dominant with the young folks. That is their go-to place. That, Instagram.
Tumblr.
Yeah, maybe a little Tumblr.
Tumblr's
no.
It's passe.
Yeah, I think Snapchat really dominates. And I base that only on my kids who use it all the time.
Yeah, that doesn't mean they're going to build a huge, awesome business on it. That's still, they haven't proven that yet, but I think that they have a pretty good chance.
Thanks to Katie Benner, I've learned a new term. You've heard of unicorns. She's talking about unicorpses.
Yes.
Yes, and a great article in the Times this week on Living Social, a cautionary tale to today's unicorns. Living Social raised a ton of money.
It was the hundreds of millions.
It was one of the first.
Almost $1 billion.
Yeah,
really.
It was one of the raised $1 billion, which gave them, of course, a valuation of more than that. One of the first unicorns, that is a private company valued at $1 billion or more. Their valuation got to $4.5 billion.
Wow!
After they raised more than $800 million. This is an example, though, of groupthink, right? And Snapchat might be a little bit of that, where everybody says, "Oh, yeah, the next big thing is Groupon / Living Social." And then the whole idea of these deals by coupon just died.
It was a fad business model.
It was totally a fad. Well, and also there was a challenging business model because you had to put salespeople in every burg and every town and every city. And so they had 4,500 employees, but almost all of them are in sales.
Yes.
Trying to sell these, these coupons. Groupon got to go public and raised money. So,
I was in Chicago actually when they were
Living
blown
Social
up.
was too late.
It was a weird moment because everyone thought they were the next Jesus, and it turns out they were not. But in that time period, they were growing so fast. We had a running joke in Chicago in the tech scene entitled "What did Groupon buy recently that was dumb?" They would just put weird stuff in the office like ponies.
Right.
Just weird things because they had so much capital flying in. And now to see this is kind of the absolute end of that story, and I'm kind of a little bummed out because these were good companies, good people that worked really hard, but the ultimate model, as Erin just said, doesn't work out.
Well, and Snapchat, one of those unicorns that if fidelity is right, maybe starting to see the end of the line. Dropbox, by the way.
Here's the thing about
also
this.
being
just reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing about the Snapchat thing, though, is that we don't actually know how they are marking their valuation, because if they're just marking it to market, as in comparing it to companies that are publicly traded, who are they comparing it to? Facebook and Twitter? Is this other media companies who have taken a huge hit because of Snapchat and worries over cord cutting over the last year? So it's kind of basically it's like they're getting investments from mutual funds who are kind of looking at them like public companies with fluctuating valuations, and they were used to having one single valuation, that, regardless of what happens, little blips in the market. And so they're kind of experiencing that. I don't think that means that we should kind of count them out. It just means that it hurts their narrative on their way to going public.
It's also a little weird to see institutional investors buying pre-IPO companies. That's very risky, isn't it?
Well, I mean, as
not
we just
really.
saw,
It's a tiny chunk of their overall portfolios. I mean, these people have portfolios that are they're managing hundreds of billions worth of dollars. So one tiny little $1 billion investment in Snapchat, or less than that, 400 or something like that, is kind
nothing.
And if they can double their money in a couple of years, then why not?
I mean, it's very useful, though, for us. I mean, external observers that we are. I mean, to have these numbers come out helps me and y'all just really kind of get a better grip on where these companies are going and so forth. I mean, the whole narrative that Dropbox was worth $10 million was hard to assail externally because we didn't have the actual revenue numbers and so forth. But when they do this sort of thing, we have a little more data to fight with, and I'm thankful.
I totally agree with that. We only have the information they give us because they're public. At least in the first .com bubble, we knew how much money these companies were burning. Yes. I mean, people didn't care, but we at least had that information available to us.
And then there's Square, which everybody, in fact, we talked about. Oh gosh, they're going to IPO is going to go off below their most recent valuation. This is a terrible, terrible thing. And Quartz writes, Square's IPO achieved something that hasn't been seen in 17 years.
Priced below
the target range in the prospectus, and then it went up a lot, 45% in the first day. So this actually was good for everybody, right? Square was able to pay back people who, I think, was it $97 million they had to pay back?
You don't pay back, you provide liquidity.
Provide liquidity.
Yes, which is the dork way of saying that. But so the Square IPO number at $9 a share was really terrifying because their range was 11 to 13, which is also already very conservative. So when they stood on that $9 number, it showed a lack of, I think, enthusiasm among investors on the professional side, and then on the other side, it worked out pretty well. But, Erin, when you watched this day one, were you surprised by the jump, or do you think it was relatively expectable?
I actually didn't really watch it that closely day one, but
all right.
In retrospect, because I was, like I said earlier, closing this other story, but in retrospect, I look at it and it just seems kind of just overly conservative, that they're more concerned with the story of having the big pop and getting to say that we're the highest trading for day one IPO in 17 years. Like that's obviously great to be able to say, but it's way better than being able to say we're the most priced to perfection IPO in the last 2 months.
Right.
So
yeah. So what?
It seems like a little bit of game playing.
Yeah.
In order to have this positive narrative, as opposed to having it trade down and everybody say, "Oh, Square's a dud. Write them off forever." And it's a distraction from this.
But it's a sacrifice too, because Square only gets the $9. They don't get the pop.
Right. Well, I mean, they have to hold. So all the insiders, have a lockup period. So we'll see if in 90 days or however long the lockup period is, if the shares stay up.
Here's their CEO, Jack Dorsey, taking one of his trademark selfies. He gets half of his head.
He's a very handsome man. I wish I had that jawline.
Well, at least half of his head.
There we go. Half a jawline.
Half a jawline with the IPO. It does.
Sorry, Dan, I cut you off.
You're leaving money on the. Go ahead, Dan. Go ahead. I cut him off.
How did this happen? Is this a cagey strategy that was pulled off by the people who prepared and packaged Square's IPO? Was this dumb luck? It seems like for this to be such a rare occurrence, especially with a company like Square, there's part of the story that I don't understand, and I don't know if it's just for lack of knowing the details, or are there some smart people pulling some smart strings here?
Well, you have to fill the book. So with the Zendesk IPO, I was told by 2 different people that the IPO almost didn't happen. And so they had to price very conservatively to actually get the IPO
just
out the
to
door.
get it out the door.
And their VCs had to buy a chunk of the book.
Yeah, I mean, Jack lost $730 million on his valuation with a $9.
But the Zendesk IPO went gangbusters when it came out. It's very popular. But just to get it done, to get the actual IPO completed, they had to take a real haircut. And so I think probably, if I had to guess, and this is a guess, it's a similar circumstance as we're seeing right now. So that's my take, Erin.
That is so interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And also, I mean, if you just look at it in the context of the other tech IPOs that have happened this year, the investors haven't been super jazzed on most of them. And so I think it makes sense to kind of be a little bit conservative. This felt sort of like extreme conservatism.
Very much so.
But it'll be really interesting to see, because there have been so few tech IPOs this year, and there is a little bit of a pent-up pipeline for companies to actually go public. It'll be really interesting to see if that strategy continues or if it's unique to Square.
Yeah. Also, one last data point before we move on to actually things that are interesting. But if you look at Square's S1, their first document they filed, the numbers looked pretty good. Then look at their S1A, their refiled S1. That had another quarter of data. It was very much weaker. It was not as good. And so I think when we discuss this IPO, we have to keep in mind that they put a lot of points on the board and then retracted a little bit in their last offering. So I think that people were a little more skittish about their finances, their margins, revenue growth, the whole thing. And so I'm not, shocked that this is where we ended up.
And what about Tinder's IPO?
No comments.
Sean Rad, the founder and CEO, gave a kind of an intro. I thought it was quite a good interview to the Evening Standard, but apparently the folks at Tinder had to disavow him and say, hey, we don't know this guy. We never heard of this guy. Who's this guy?
What about it did you think was good?
Yeah, well, it was fairly honest. I don't know. I didn't see the problems. Look it's a hookup app. Do you expect this guy to be, Jerry Falwell?
Yes. He should not be an idiot. He's apparently an idiot.
I expect him to be professional. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not totally sexist.
He's kind of a bro.
A little bit.
Kind of
but
a
it's
bro?
Tinder, for crying out loud. What do you expect for Tinder?
That's true. I would like him to be professional. I don't expect it. Sorry.
Yeah, just because you have a
low expectation.
No, but just because you work in a maybe seedy industry, which I don't necessarily even know if I agree with that, doesn't mean that you aren't expected to be a professional human who is aware of, what other people think of you.
Yeah, but they did throw him under the bus. And by the way, the vice president of communications and branding, Rosette Pambakian, was sitting right next to him in this whole interview and didn't at any point put her hand over his mouth or...
He thought that if you like intelligence, the word is sodomy. He's an idiot.
Well,
Has he ever read a book? Like twice, maybe?
He didn't know what sodomy meant, but I thought that was kind of endearing.
No, that's not endearing at all. That is horrifying. Like, have you read any history whatsoever? Okay. Like, I don't know, maybe like the Bible for just once. Like, come on, this is a level of lack of intelligence that I find shocking. It was hilarious. I laughed all morning at this interview. But if that's your guy, this is the CEO. You're gonna put him up there.
He's not my guy, and I'm not buying Tinder stock. I'm just surprised that the company would throw him. I mean, he's the CEO. Throw him under the bus.
This is not the first time he's done dumb things before, though. I mean, he was initially fired, wasn't he, for some kind of sexual harassment situation?
Issue. Yeah, a little harassment thing. It's not
a little harassment thing. Leo, you're not doing so well in the last 2 minutes. You might want to just, Okay. Erin, keep going.
No, I'm done.
Okay. Anyway, when is Tinder's IPO?
How did it happen?
And where can I buy some?
You can buy it on the NASDAQ. It's called Match Group. MTCH is the ticker symbol, and they had a very good first day.
Did they?
Yeah.
See? Didn't hurt him, did it?
Well, I mean, here's the thing.
That's because he's not the CEO of the whole company.
Right.
He's just the CEO of one happens to be very fast-growing.
What else does Match Group do?
Plenty of Fish, Match.com. Erin, what else?
What is it?
Match.com. I don't know.
Match.com.
Tinder.
And Plenty of Fish is another dating site?
Yeah, and they have a couple other
There's
ones,
a dating
too.
site called Plenty of Fish?
Who here online dates? Dan?
No, girlfriend.
Oh, okay, same. All right. Erin? You know anything?
What? So, okay. I don't even, this is free, right? POF? God, it's the ugliest site I've ever seen in my life.
It's kind of like twit.tv.
Hey,
I mean, I do know.
Snark it off. Snark it off.
If you're in a major city, you're using one of these apps, or if you're single, I mean, I think that they've become pretty ubiquitous.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know that I would even call Tinder a hookup app at this point. It's just the new OkCupid.
Okay.
And they also own OkCupid, right?
Oh, do they? All right.
Oh, okay.
So if you're buying their stock, actually, you're buying love. So there's nothing wrong with that.
They should give out shares with subscriptions. Like
How do you feel about love? I feel good about love. I'd buy stock in love. Wouldn't you buy stock in love?
It would forsake me.
Well, I don't know about your personal life,
What
but
about
I'm just
non-GAAP
saying,
love?
how could you go wrong buying stock in love?
I'm not going to comment on that.
Mm.
That was Erin, not me, signing.
Okay. Erin, I want to talk about Marissa Mayer.
Okay.
There's been some talk that maybe the end of the line is nigh.
Yeah, and that's been the talk for a while, but it seems to be getting quite a bit louder in recent weeks. And there's even some reports, I think, that said that she could be out by the end of the year.
Wow. Well,
She
we'll
could
talk
be
about
stepping
that.
down gracefully.
Save your powder. We'll talk about that in just a bit. Also, RDO. We'll say a fond farewell. But first, a word from Wealthfront. Wealthfront solves a conundrum for all of us. You've got to save money. I mean, your mom told you that. You got to save money for a rainy day, for the down payment on your house, for college, for your retirement. The problem is you're not going to put that money in a savings account. Maybe when mom was saying save your money, that's what she was thinking. And maybe in those days when a savings account at 4 or 5% interest, maybe you could. Nowadays, you put money in a savings account, you're basically losing money. So that's not going to work. What else do? You put it in the stock market? Well, as you could probably tell from our discussion over the last few minutes, this is an unpredictable place. Are you going to manage it yourself? Or maybe you're going to go to one of them fancy guys at a brokerage or a financial advisor who's going to charge you between 1% to 3% of what you have under management every year, not to mention the hidden fees for transactions and changes. You're back. You might as well put it in the savings account. You're making nothing again. That's why I love Wealthfront. Wealthfront lets you save for your future. It's long-term investment management, but it's smart. First of all, it's done by software. So it can do things that are very sophisticated. It trades in ways that individuals usually cannot. Things like tax loss harvesting and direct indexing. Ask your investment advisor, hey, what's tax loss harvesting? And watch him look it up as quick as he can on Wikipedia. Listen to the typing in the background. With Wealthfront, you get great management based on some of the best minds in Wall Street, people like Burton Malkiel, who wrote the Random Walk Down Wall Street, or Charles D. Ellis, who wrote the Investor's Guide. I mean, these people have taken more than 200 years of investment experience and distilled it into the Wealthfront software. And whether you're investing for retirement or any long-term goal, they automatically will take care of you. They'll rebalance your portfolio. They'll reinvest the dividends, all commission-free. They maximize they minimize your tax bill by maximizing your tax loss harvesting. They do direct indexing, a lot of very sophisticated stuff. With Wealthfront, the cost of this, 0.25% a year. What? Not 0.25% a year. And there are never any commissions or hidden fees. So you're paying less than $5 a month to invest, let's say, a $30,000 account. $30,000 under investment, less than $5 a month. And no additional charges for any of their services. That's one of the reasons Wealthfront has grown 20 times in the past 2 years and now have over $2.6 billion under investment. And you can find out exactly what Wealthfront would do on your behalf right now free. Get a free personalized investment portfolio at wealthfront.com/twit. You'll answer a few questions about time frame and risk aversion, things like that. And they'll get you that portfolio for free. And if you decide to invest the minimum, $500, you can get started that low. And this is a really nice thing. They will manage your first $15,000 free of charge for life. Not a quarter of 1%, zero for life. Claim your offer today. Wealthfront.com/twit. For compliance purposes, I have to tell you, Wealthfront Incorporated is an SEC-registered investment advisor. Brokerage services are offered through Wealthfront Brokerage Corporation, member FINRA and SIPC. This is not a solicitation to buy or sell securities. Investing in securities involves risks, and there is the possibility of losing money. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Please visit wealthfront.com to read their full disclosure. I'm guessing, Alex Wilhelm, you're a Spotify kind of a guy.
I am indeed, yes.
Yeah. Dan Patterson, I think you're more Mr. Pandora.
I was RDO for years and years.
Were
and
you?
years.
That's sad.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yep.
And Erin, I'm thinking you're an Apple Music person.
No, Spotify.
No?
All the
Spotify.
way.
Yeah. I use Google Play and Spotify both. I think I can't decide. I'm stuck. I like Discover Music on Spotify, but I like it that Google Play has all my Beatles albums, so I can listen to the Beatles.
What are the Beatles?
You never heard of them?
Never heard of them. They that Sgt. Pepper thing once, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. RDO was the first, believe it or not, it came to America a year before Spotify. It was the first streaming music service of that kind in the U.S. They never got the size of the catalog up. 7 million, I think, at the end.
Yes.
Whereas Groove Music, Microsoft's, which I think is the biggest still, 30 million. Spotify close to that. They never really got the subscriber base that Spotify or Pandora had. In fact, according to a Hollywood Reporter, they were losing $2 million a month.
Yeah, that's terrifying. I had some friends that worked there, so this is a little personal to me because they didn't hear about it very far in advance.
Yeah.
And so it's been tough to talk to them through this. But, when you have Spotify, which is the independent winning category provider right now, and also you have Apple, Google, and Microsoft all in the space, you have to be so different to survive that I'm not shocked that this happened. I'm disappointed in a lot of ways, but I didn't wake up and go, oh my gosh, I never thought this was going to happen. But the rate of loss was terrifying. The debt is terrifying.
$220 million
$220
in debt. I mean, this is a Chapter 11. This is.
I don't know how they got there. It's impressive. I can't borrow $5 from my friends, but $220 million is all good.
Well, but I think a couple of takeaways from this. First of all, this is a tough business to be in. The record industry can squeeze you, and they don't like you, right? I mean, Adele just announced I'm not going to put my album 25 on any streaming service, and you know what? She's going to sell more albums because people will have to buy it, and she's got a big enough base of users that they will. And the record industry decides how much money you make. Also, you're competing against companies like Apple, Google, Microsoft, maybe Amazon that don't need to make money in their music services, right? Those are value-added plays for those companies.
It's a platform play. I mean, if you're Apple or Google or Microsoft, you want to provide everything. You want to do apps and music and operating systems and hardware. You want to do the whole vertical stack.
Well, that means to me that Spotify might be next on this list.
I think Spotify will not. It won't die. Either it gets purchased or it IPOs. I mean, Erin, what do you think?
Do we ever have a final user number for RDO? I mean, was it like insanely small?
It was.
Because I think every person that ever used RDO tweeted about it nonstop about how superior it was. And I tried it a few times and I could never quite see the benefit of it over Spotify. I mean, the design was a lot nicer. Spotify always, I thought, was faster and sort of worked better. But I don't know that they had a real differentiator to begin with.
Right.
And Spotify has critical mass. They have, I can't remember what the latest is, maybe 40 million, 50 million users and 15 to 20 million.
Spotify's 70 million with 20 million paying.
Wait, hold on, Dan.
Okay.
What was Dan saying?
I think RDO's you're exactly right. They didn't have a differentiator eventually, but they did because they were the first. I mean, eMusic kind of was subscription, and then RDO was the first in the States. And I remember Spotify a long time ago was nascent, but RDO was the first in the States. Their differentiator was that, hey, you can do this. You can pay money and stream this music. I mean, Lala kind of did it before the Apple acquisition, but you're right. They weren't differentiated later, but they were initially because they were the only place you could stream or you could pay a subscription.
Why couldn't they capitalize on that, Dan? What held them back?
You would probably know better than I would, but just as a consumer, I think that all of the things we just hit on, which is they didn't iterate, for whatever reason, whether it was management, vision, a ton of different things colliding, I don't know, but they did not iterate. They did not change. I remember speaking to them for a little while and talking about, hey, podcasting, something that could set you apart. And they just had to double down on what their core competencies were. I assume that over time it was because of lack of management, lack of capital, and competition in the marketplace. Really, you guys might know a lot better than I would.
Interestingly, Spotify, Google, Apple, all are incorporating podcasts. I think part of the issue is that the record industry, you're basically based on a business. You're piggybacking on a business that hates you. That is not a good place to be, frankly.
Low margin piggyback.
Yeah, and at any point, the record industry could squeeze you harder.
I mean, this is why Pandora, I think, is in a lot of trouble. I mean, this is the exact argument Pandora has.
One of the reasons one of the ways they squeezed RDO is by keeping them from going to more than 7 million cuts, right?
There you go.
They just said, no, you can't license that stuff. And why would you sign up for RDO if everybody else has 30 million?
The music industry has to be one of the absolute most backwards things ever. And I keep trying to understand how they're still so bad, and yet they're still just as bad as I thought. So
yeah. I think, frankly, Spotify loses more money than RDO. But they might have more runway. But ultimately, this is challenging. Pandora bought the intellectual property and hired some of RDO's employees. They plan to do a streaming service next year, but I think Pandora has complained for years about how hard it is to survive. Spotify doesn't complain, but you got to think they're suffering a little bit. It's going to, I promise you, in 2 or 3 years, it'll be Apple, it'll be Google, it might be Amazon, and it might be Microsoft. I think Microsoft could stay in the business, but they
can afford to do it forever. But Pandora was so desperate to get around to some of the royalties that were so punishing, they actually bought a terrestrial radio station, like an actual WKB4, whatever it was. Dan probably knows. But, I mean, they literally bought that so they could have access to, at least in theory, lower rates for streaming, and they got busted up in court. But, like, they are hell-bent, and that's okay to say on the show.
It just makes me sad because I love Spotify. And I think that these services consumers love. The artists don't seem to, and record labels don't seem to. So I just have a feeling they're not going to be long for this world.
What's unfortunate about... Oh, go ahead.
No. So, Leo, you might have just touched on the reason, and Alex, you as well, look, the music business, we can say the music business when we're talking in very generic terms, but more than almost any other media business, the music business is not one industry, right? You have the publishers, ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC, on the one hand, licensing the music. You have the record labels, which used to sell mechanicals, right? The actual disc or the thing. And now, they've kind of functioned as banks that will roll cash out to artists, but those are all loans. And then you have the artists themselves. So you have all these different competing interests within one industry, and trying to corral those cats is just impossible. I think the other, mediums, movies, television, you've seen a consolidation of the rights interests. And so it's a little easier to do negotiations for that.
Yeah. So are you advocating almost for a vertically integrated record label?
I'm not advocating anything.
No, I think here's what I'm at. I'll tell you what I'm advocating. The record labels are a dinosaur. We don't need them anymore. What do? They paid so you could get your record produced. You don't need that anymore.
In advance, you got to pay back.
Yeah, and of course the contracts were always famously horribly in the favor of the company and against the artist.
And they haven't changed them to adapt to the digital world. The ironic thing about all of it is that as a Spotify consumer, premium subscriber, I now pay $120 a year to music, which is more than the average CD buyer bought in the height of the CD boom.
Right.
Like that.
So there's money going in, but where does it go?
But it's just split across so many more artists now because if I buy one CD, I'm going to listen to that a lot, but they don't actually know how often I listen to it, and they don't care at that point. And now it's like the pie of artists that I listen to is so massive, and they're split into teeny, tiny little slivers that, they're not seeing that same big $12 or $20 CD chunk that they would get if I bought the album.
Yeah. Admittedly, artists are still kind of, dream of signing that record deal, but I think artists might have to start thinking about that is a deal with the devil. Yes. And I feel like if you're the opportunity here is to reinvent the music business, for artists to find a new way to reach their audience. I think reaching your audience directly is going to be the key. And I just think that we need to get the middleman out of there because, frankly, most of the money that comes from Spotify, billions of dollars a year, and Pandora doesn't go to the artists. It goes to the labels. And if you have a problem with, not making money from Spotify, you probably ought to ask your label. Where's that money going?
It's going to them and not you.
As it always has.
As it always has. But if you look at a label like Strange Music, which is the biggest independent hip-hop label in the world, they run their entire thing top to bottom. They do their own merchandise, their own tours, their own records, their own studio. And so they have this entire
That's
thing
what you have
in-house.
to do.
And they're doing great.
Yeah.
But I mean, name another label that's like that. I mean, it's rare to see. And so there's a lot of innovation
going on. There are a lot of
in
individual artists like Jonathan Colton, Humphreys McGee. There are a lot of individuals who are actually bridging the gap to their audience and selling direct to their audience and doing okay. They're not going to be platinum sellers. They're
That's
not.
right.
And it may be that those days are gone.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's a reality of the music business now, that if you want to be rich and famous, what you want is to be rich and famous. It's not to be, you can make a really great middle-class income by packaging everything yourself, but you're not going to be rich and famous.
That's the truth. Yeah, who wants that though? I mean, no one goes, I'm going to become a musician and take over the world. And make
you become a
$80K.
musician because you love music and you want to be an artist.
Yeah.
And if
We
you
all
can
love
make,
music.
you know what? If you're an artist and you can make a living and be middle class, that's good. And that's
It is good.
I think that's something to celebrate. I think you don't need to be Metallica.
Speaking of which, Metallica actually founded their own label and bought all the recordings.
They own their masters.
They
and
bought,
boy, that
it's
was
called Blackened Records.
a smart move, wasn't it?
But they
All
didn't have the money. So.
Marissa Meyer has lost the narrative, writes Erin Griffith in Fortune magazine. Is there a drumbeat now? This makes me sad because, of course, Yahoo is, I think, probably, in hindsight, was an unwinnable war, saving Yahoo.
I think that a lot of people would agree with you there.
Yeah.
Except for Marissa Meyer.
I love Marissa Meyer, and I thought I really was rooting for her to succeed. But it may have been a job that, no one could do.
Well, that's what her activist shareholders now think. I mean, they first told her, okay, we need you to spin off these Alibaba and Yahoo Japan shares.
She did it.
And she's like, okay, whatever I can do to get you off my back so I can continue trying to fix this company. And then, last week they decided, okay, you know what? Actually, never mind. That's not such a good idea because you might have to pay a lot of taxes on it. So why don't you sell Yahoo and keep Yahoo Inc., the stock that we now own, as a shell company that owns shares in Alibaba and Yahoo Japan and has $5.5 billion in cash, which is just kind of nonsense if you think about it. And so I'm sort of convinced that the activists have run out of good ideas. The shareholders don't think there's any way that Marissa Meyer can actually pull this off. And she's probably going to have to step down soon. But
but who do they pick that's going to be better?
Whoa, Erin, you think she'll step down soon?
Well, we were talking about this a little bit earlier. There's been some kind of reports of people speculating that maybe by the end of the year she could step down, or that.
When's the filing deadline for the presidential election? She wants to step down before that.
That was actually a very good joke, Leo. Your first one tonight. But
I'm serious.
Was fantastic.
I mean, seriously, I would vote for Marissa Meyer. It'd be a lot easier to run America than it would be to run Yahoo.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I don't know about that.
That is I'm not touching that.
Okay, step one: don't listen to activist investors. Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I mean, the activist investors have so much power now.
Right.
And basically, I mean, she already succeeded by getting Dan Loeb off of her board. So she's like, all right, I made this guy happy. I got rid of him. I'm going to do it again.
Who's Starboard?
Starboard, is it Jeffrey Sonnenfeld? Is that the guy's name?
So this is one of the activist investors is Starboard.
Yeah.
You know, it's really tough, though. Like, when we sit here and kind of armchair quarterback Yahoo, I think if any one of us was the CEO and
I couldn't run this company.
No, I think we would have done kind of the same thing.
Yes.
I mean, she had a focus on mobile. And
Okay, that's part of the problem. She didn't have a focus. I think, if I were going to criticize her performance, she couldn't decide if Yahoo was a services company or a content company. She didn't have a focus, and she didn't focus on enough of the real strengths of Yahoo to pull it back. I mean, it was a tough company. I think you probably spin off a lot of it.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead, Dan. Dan, what do you think? What would you have done?
This is armchair quarterbacking, but I do think that her strategy was all over the place. I think that she, all of the reports coming out in the first couple of years were that she alienated a lot of people. And, she has a nice reputation coming from Google, but she's also said some things that show her management weaknesses.
Yeah, Recode and Kara Swisher specifically has been recounting the departure of executive after executive.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that what she probably should have done is maybe put her head down a little bit and learn some some C-level management skills that you just don't have inherently because you were successful at Google.
Right.
Success in one place does not guarantee success in another place. And if she was truly this smart, brilliant person, humility is part of that. And saying, look, I need to learn some skills and I need to actually turn this company around. Simply throwing money at Katie Couric I worked at ABC News. I know it's not a solution.
Oh, man. Erin. All right, I'll take that.
Erin, I'm curious. What do the activist investor? What do people in the know? What will Yahoo be? It is now just the sad mishmash of things that we used to like. But what is the future of Yahoo?
I mean, that's the problem with activist investors is that they don't know how to fix a tech company, especially when if it's one thing if it's like, okay, cut costs, divest some industry or divest some segments, but this is like you have to be innovative, so you have to think of things that haven't been thought of before, and that's not the specialty of an activist investor. So they've kind of run out of ideas.
But as CEO, wasn't it incumbent on Meyer to come up with a coherent strategy? And I don't think she ever laid out a strategy.
Part of the reason that they brought her in was because they had this option. They could have elevated Ross Levinson and made Yahoo a content company, a media business, which is basically what they are, or they could bring in Marissa Meyer, who they viewed as this product visionary, who could come up with new products and sort of reinvigorate the Yahoo's old products and turn it into an innovator again. And then she got there and she kind of started doing that a little bit, but also she thought, oh, well, I'll do the media part too. And it turns out she doesn't really know that business that well. And she made these, this Katie Couric bet. And then, we saw that she wrote down $42 million for her investment in Community and a couple other shows that she commissioned that end up being very expensive. And, people are also even questioning Yahoo's fantasy football streaming deal and seeing whether or not the company made any money on that. So that's not an area that she has a lot of expertise, and she hasn't proven that she can pick it up really easily. So it seems like all along they maybe should have brought in the media person who actually can make that into a viable business.
Yeah, but here's my thought. Given all of that, I think your analysis is totally correct. But if Marissa leaves, then who?
Yeah.
And that's I don't have a single name on that list.
I think what we're really saying is this is the beginning of the end for Yahoo.
Yeah.
Well, it's at least the end of the beginning.
It's they've gone through 5 CEOs now over the last decade. All talented people who basically went there and hit a wall in their careers because they couldn't fix it.
As an observer, do you think it was her abrasive style that kind of was part of the problem?
No.
She asked the executives to pledge that they wouldn't quit. And
I think that's just bad management. I don't think that had to do with her abrasive style.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting differentiator.
Bad management. Might be less of a loaded thing to say, especially for a female CEO.
I will say though, if you are at Yahoo's campus on Friday, the food's really good, and everyone brings their kids, and so it's kind of a fun carnival atmosphere.
It's a nice place.
It's lovely.
Purple's a great color.
It's very sunny down there in Sunnyvale. It's lovely. But I'm sad because I really hope Marissa was going to do well.
I did too.
And that
I was
she was
rooting
going
for her.
And she's way smarter than I am, so I was pulling for her. But sometimes
what?
She's way smarter than I am.
Way smarter.
Way
I thought
smarter.
you said she weighs more than I am.
Whoa, no. To be very clear, way smarter.
Okay.
Way
I'm sorry. I'm old
intelligent.
and my hearing's
It's fine.
bad.
Yeah, you're like 85.
Yeah.
It's okay.
You're my bad ear.
It's okay. The point is,
it wasn't my bad ear
I
until
thought she was
you
going to pull it
sat
off.
there.
Well, you invited me back. Your mistake. I thought she was going to not only do well, but also carve out a big position as a female CEO in tech, which I was really excited to see. And I think the problems at Yahoo were just too big for any one person to fix.
I just want to say Steve Ballmer is available.
Oh, gosh. He's not, though. He has a basketball team now.
Yeah, he officially has a basketball team. The Clippers are now his. The courts have ruled.
Yeah, I hear they're really good, too.
Last story of the day. In 2012, the Oxford Dictionaries named the word of the year GIF. In 2013, selfie. Last year's word of the year was vape.
It's GIF, not GIF.
Okay, GIF.
Jeez.
I don't know if they weighed in on that.
I will.
The word of the year for 2015, can I have a drum roll, is not a word. It's an emoji. Face with tears of joy. How do you even put that in the dictionary?
Satire is dead. Satire is over. Wrap it up.
Is this
go
LOL,
home.
ROFL?
No, this is my suicide note in GIF format.
We're in a post text world.
Apparently we are.
They're just catching up to that reality.
Casper Grathwohl, president of Oxford Dictionary, says you can see how traditional alphabet scripts have been struggling to meet They're failing to meet the rapid-fire, visually focused demands of 21st century communication. It's not surprising that a pictographic script like Emoji has stepped in to fill those gaps.
Am I too young to say these kids these days?
Kids these days.
That's
That's what's wrong. It's flexible, immediate, and infuses tone beautifully. As a result, emoji are becoming an increasingly rich form of communication, one that transcends linguistic borders. The other candidates on the short list, ad blocker, dark web. One for you, lumbersexual.
How you doing?
On fleek.
No.
Which
All
I
of these
just
are terrible.
on fleek. I just recently learned that one. Refugee. Oh. I don't know this one, Alex. I'm glad you're here. Brexit, Brexit.
It's the British exit from the EU. Brexit.
Oh, British exit. I get it.
Yeah. It's the whole referendum thing with the
and sharing economy.
That's when Uber takes all your money.
Another short list item, the word they, and in a particular context when used instead of him or her, you want to identify a person but you don't want to give it a gender, you say they, which is, of course, ungrammatical, but there is no such thing as grammar, as we all know.
Yeah, that's my writing style, actually.
The language is changing.
It's an emoji. It's one of the worst emojis, actually.
Is it?
Yeah. I'm not very emoji fluid, but, that's just horrible. Why would you pick that one?
It's not so nuanced. It's like LOL. Whereas, there's a lot of other ones that can say things that maybe words couldn't say.
Look at this website. This is Emoji Tracker. It tracks real-time uses of emojis on Twitter. And the number one emoji on Twitter is, in fact,
the crying
face
emoji.
That's because kids use them three at a time.
Right.
You put three in a row to show like how hard you're laughing.
Incidentally, it just crossed, ready for this, 1 billion uses in the Emoji Tracker. We weren't here for that magic moment. It was only a few hours ago, and I'm sad. I'm crying. I'm crying now and laughing.
Well,
if only there were an emoji that could express that.
Look what you got.
Subtle emotion.
Look what you got. No, but we make our money, not you, but the rest of us writing things, right?
Yeah.
Literally, our day job is.
Are you allowed to use emoji at TechCrunch in your articles?
Oh, definitely. I just wouldn't have any self-respect.
Does that count as a word for your 15 cents a word?
I'm on salary, not paid by the word. Because I could bang on for years, man. I got to say it. But no, I'm just, this to me is the hieroglyphs compared to the written word. I mean, why is this an improvement? This is a way to get away from actually creating your own sentences and thoughts and paragraphs.
No, I think it's more nuanced than a word. What is that? That means
that's insane.
It's more.
Look, it's a heart. It's got 447,000 uses. It's literally a heart.
447 million.
Do it with a less than 3.
359,399. I mean, 406. I mean, 414.
Do you emoji to your kids?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm gonna try that tomorrow. My lead is just going to be like 3 emojis.
All emojis. It's the future, according to the
I once tried to express an announcement from the Fed in emojis. For the back page of Fortune. I don't know if our readers got it.
The best part about this page is the bottom. What do you think the least used emoji is on Twitter?
Oh, one of those weird symbol ones, probably.
At the bottom of the emoji tracker it's hard to get to.
There you go. Yeah.
The customs guy looking through your suitcase.
Oh, TSA.
Hashtag ISIS.
I don't know. It's very low. I don't know why. Only 26,485 uses.
It's gotten less use than the thing that has the train on the sky thing. Like, that's impressive to me. That's really down there.
Yeah, it's fun to see the ones that...
funicular?
Yeah. Less use than 630.
Backwards CC got 41,000 views at least.
Less use than ABCD.
Empty actual physical mailbox. No one checks those. Yeah. And then we have just...
what is this?
7 p.m.?
What does that mean?
That's Twit's mission statement.
It's the input symbol for symbols.
Oh. It's a little meta for me, actually.
It's very meta.
Can we keep you on?
Yeah, it's fun. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you so much for joining us. Erin Griffith at Fortune.com. Your big article, I can't wait to read this, on the man who is working so closely with Sun San to run SoftBank, former Google executive.
Nikesh Arora.
That's right. Nikesh, what is it? Nikesh Arora?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm actually very interested to read this. He was.
It'll be out in a few weeks.
Yeah. Oh, you're still working on it.
Well, we're close. Old-timey print magazines take a little time to close stories. So
what is print?
Wow.
Yeah. No, you guys heard of that?
Is it going to be the cover?
No, that'll be our investors. That'll be in our investors guide.
Okay.
No,
I think SoftBank is I used to work for Sun San because he bought Ziff Davis.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And
he did that to learn more about the computer industry.
Yeah, very interesting fella, bright guy.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure I really understand his strategy. He also bought recently Sprint. They have lots of money, and I think it's when did they hire? When did they hire Aurora? That's fairly recent, yeah.
Yeah, a year and a half ago.
Yeah, interesting. Anyway, Erin, we'll look forward to that. Follow her on the Twitter. She's at Alex or Fortune.com. Just getting back,
It's all good. It's
Alex Wilhelm.
It's a fair point.
Yeah, he said he was at Erin Griffith, so what am I going to do? Alex Wilhelm, great to have you from TechCrunch.com. Never come back. And
no worries.
Just teasing. I love you. I love you, man.
Hi.
And, of course, I love Dan Patterson. It's always great to see you. And he has landed at TechRepublic.com, which is great news. So much fun. And I love your beat. I love your beat. I think you're in a really good position right now because the world is changing.
It's been a crazy couple of years in startups, so it's a great place to land. And in fact, this is not mine. I don't own this. This is something Jason and Lindsay have been doing. But they asked me to read. Speaking of Audible and audiobooks, they asked me to read the audiobook of Follow the Geeks.
Oh, you're kidding!
So in fact, Leo, I just finished. I'm about halfway done reading
my
the
chapter.
Book, and yeah, your chapter. I just finished the Leo chapter, and it's really interesting. I have not what I'm using now, but a studio set up in my apartment here in Brooklyn, and I spend nights with my reading of this book, and it's been a fascinating experience. Those guys did a heck of a job.
I think what they did really interesting was the way they chose their subjects. Yeah. There are 10 chapters. Yep. Each of them an innovator in one area. And look, here's the announcement. That's really great.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I don't want to plug myself. These guys,
I want to plug
those two have done great work.
But the last chapter was somebody a lot of people may not have heard of, a 15-year-old entrepreneur, Maya Penn. And there she is speaking at TED. So, hey, a 15-year-old speaks at TED. You got to have something to say, right? Very interesting chapter. You can read that now for free. And I guess because it's the last chapter, we're getting close to the book. Ebook, audiobook, or hardcover. And I love it. Dan's going to be reading the audiobook. That's fantastic.
Well, those two are just great people, as are you guys. It's been nice to meet you and talk with you.
Yeah.
Can I do one shout out?
Yeah.
Shout out to the Twit production crew, who are literally every time I'm here on point and amazing.
They are great. And you know what? They have a favor to ask. Not of you.
Oh, okay. Thank God.
They would like all of you who listen to this show and all of our shows to help us out because, as you know, the end of the year is nigh, and we like to do best ofs in that last week of the year. And we want to do a best of Twit and many of the other shows. If you have a memory from the year, could be this show, but let's go back as far as you can remember, which might be last week. And go to twit.tv/bestof. We'd love to get your suggestions. Now, the form, asks for a lot of information, including what time code was it. You don't have to know all that stuff. Just give us what you know. But we would like some ideas for the best of, because we'd love to have some fun working on that and give you a fun episode at the end of the year. twit.tv/bestof.
You took 4 years to say there.
Tomorrow on Triangulation, I'm really excited about this. We're going to talk to the founder of AMI. Remember America Megatrends? They did the BIOSes for PC compatibles.
No.
They're now doing Android for Windows. That is awesome. If you play with DOS, it is awesome.
It is awesome.
You could run Android
You can
on
run
your
Android
Windows.
on your Windows.
Exactly.
Oh,
So,
exactly.
S. Shankar will join us tomorrow on Triangulation. Don't forget, we had a fabulous new screensavers last night with Florence Ion as our host.
I love Florence.
Yeah, isn't she great? And we talked to Vincent Laforte about his book, Air, and the 17-year-old Google Science Fair winner who came up with a cheap way to diagnose Ebola.
That's an important thing.
In high school.
That's almost
in
more
high
important
school.
than Snapchat.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. Next week, going to be a wild one. Philip Elmer DeWitt, Harry McCracken, and Owen J.J. Stone are on the agenda for our Twit. If you want to watch Twit, we're every Sunday afternoon, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 2300 UTC. You can watch live. You can chat in the chat room at irc.twit.tv. But you can also join us in studio. Just email tickets at twit.tv. Chef hat not included. If you can't be here in studio, do come by and listen at the website, on-demand audio and video, always available at twit.tv for all our shows, or subscribe. That way you'll get the latest version. And yes, don't forget those new Apple TV apps. There are 4 of them. That's awesome, and they're great. And a great way to watch the show, either live or on demand. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time. Another Twit is in the can. Bye-bye. Yeah. Doing the Twit. All right.